Chapter 1089. Tian Khan Laozu was going to use the remaining 20 years of his life to form a Dharma power soul. When this news came out of Lu Ping's mouth, the faces of Tian Lin and Tian Feng, the two Laozu brothers, were filled with shock. Unexpectedly, they did not do anything extreme or say anything, only their eyes were filled with unconcealable grief. To form a Dharma power soul, at least two conditions had to be met. The first was that the practitioner had to go through at least one lightning tribulation, which was equivalent to refining the pure yang qi in order to preserve the Dharma power soul for a long time. The second condition was that the practitioner had to have at least 20 years of life to ensure that the practitioner had enough life force to sustain the formation of the Dharma power soul until the end. Regardless of whether the formation of the Dharma power soul was successful or not, regardless of how much more than 20 years of life the practitioner had left, there was only one outcome for the practitioner who formed the Dharma power soul, and that was death. In other words, for any practitioner, forming the Dharma power soul was actually a form of suicide. Who would choose suicide for no reason? Even if the lifespan of a mid-Dharma adept was at most 1,200 years, and 20 years was an extremely short period of time in his life, how many people would be willing and brave enough to give up the last 20 years of their life? Forming the Dharma power soul was entirely up to the practitioner, and if he was unwilling, no one could force him to form the Dharma power soul. Those who were willing to give up the last years of their life to form the Dharma power soul were all practitioners who had a great sense of belonging and honor to the sect, power, and organization they belonged to, and were willing to give up some things for. Just like Tian Khan Laozu to Zhenling. Tian Khan Laozu was willing to give up the last 20 years of his life to form the Dharma power soul because he wanted to repay the sect. He wanted to repay the sect for helping him accumulate the power to advance to the mid-Dharma power soul, and for helping him through the lightning tribulation and advance to the mid-Dharma power soul. He wanted to repay the sect for helping him get through the lightning tribulation and advance to the mid-Dharma power soul. The Dharma power soul was a different kind of inheritance, but it was also an orthodox one. It was a different kind of continuation of life. This kind of continuation existed in Jiang Tianlin, Jiangxi, and even in Lu Ping. It was just that this continuation was not the original intention of the practitioner to form the Dharma power soul, but it came from the legacy of the Yingtian sect, so they could not truly understand the true meaning of this inheritance. But now, when they were about to personally witness and experience Tian Khan Laozu's determination, their courage, and their recognition of the sect, the shock that came from their hearts was something that even their hundreds of years of knowledge and experience could not withstand. Perhaps for a sect to be able to last for thousands of generations, what they needed was this kind of dedication from the disciples they nurtured. The three of them sighed and were no longer in the mood to discuss the Northern Alliance, so they went their separate ways. Tian Feng Laozu had already decided to guard Jingzhi Island for a period of time, while Lu Ping and Jiang Tianlin still had to make some preparations for the Northern Alliance. At this moment, the short-distance teleporter on Jingzhi Island suddenly began to flash. Only Hearing Waves Island was using this teleporter. Uncle Tian Feng! Uncle Tian Feng! Only Ji Xian could make such a big fuss. Tian Feng Laozu's mood was heavy, and Ji Xuan's loud shout immediately triggered an aimless fire in his heart. He immediately shouted angrily. Shout! What are you shouting for? The enraged voice caused the entire jolting hibernation island to tremble. Ji Xuan's shout was immediately choked back in fright. Tian Feng Laozu also realized that something urgent must have happened on Hearing Waves Island for Ji Xian to rush over at this time, so he calmed his mind and said, Get over here, what's the matter? Seeing this, Tian Feng Laozu and Lu Ping also knew that something must have happened, so they put down the preparations they were doing and returned to the secret room on Jingzhi Island. When they saw Ji Xian, the eyes of the three Dharma adepts lit up. At this moment, Ji Xuan's aura was surging around him, and it was obvious that he had already accumulated enough strength at the 9th level of core forging and could prepare to smelt the third heaven and earth spirit item. When Ji Xian saw Jiang Tianlin and Lu Ping, his expression became even more joyful, and his originally slightly anxious expression relaxed quite a bit. Seeing the three people's questioning gazes, Ji Xianxian hurriedly calmed down and said, "To Uncle Masters, we found a Dharma adept who was washed to the beach by the tide early this morning outside Hearing Waves Island. We feel that something is strange, so we would like to invite two Uncle Masters over to take a look." Ji Xianxian naturally invited Tian Feng Laozu to come to Jingzhi Island, but now that Tian Lin Laozu was also present, he naturally had to invite both of them together. As for Lu Ping, with their relationship, Ji Xianxian could completely ignore him. A Dharma adept who was seriously injured and on the verge of death? Now that the battle in Phantom City had just ended in the Fallen Mystery Land, the chaos in the Northern Alliance, which was closest to the Fallen Mystery Land, had caused the deaths of Dharma adepts to become somewhat common. But after all, it was a Dharma adept, and it just so happened that he had floated to Hearing Waves Island. The three of them looked at each other, and a trace of interest arose in them to go and take a look. On Hearing Waves Island, Yin Xianchu and Qi Lianing both looked as if they were facing a formidable enemy, guarding against the unconscious adept on the ground. Even though this adept's life force was continuously weakening, he was still a Dharma adept after all, and it was hard to guarantee that he would have any life-saving methods to attack at the last moment. Furthermore, this person was seriously injured and had floated along with the tide to Hearing Waves Island. What if some enemies followed any clues and found their way to Hearing Waves Island? It must be known that someone who could beat up this Dharma adept was not someone they could afford to offend. The teleporter on Hearing Waves Island was activated, and after a flash of light, Lu Ping and the others had already arrived. Tian Feng Laozu had already been to Hearing Waves Island a few times, so he could be considered to be familiar with the place. However, it was Tian Lin Laozu's first time here, and he looked at everything on the island with some interest, nodding his head in approval from time to time. Although Hearing Waves Island was only a medium-sized island, the East Sea was originally wealthier than the North Sea, and the training resources in the Fallen Mystery Land were even better than those in the East Sea. In addition, with the management of Lu Ping, Xian Chu, Qi Lianing, and the others, everything on Hearing Waves Island was even better than the 36 medium-sized islands under Jinling's jurisdiction. In the North Sea, there was also an island like this, and it was even better managed than Hearing Waves Island. That was Huangli Island. It was just that Huangli Island was also managed by Lu Ping, and until now, it was under Lu Ping's control. Jinling, from Tian Xiang Laozu to the second and third generation adepts, no one was willing or dared to compete with Lu Ping on this matter. Luckily, Lu Ping didn't have any intentions of forcibly occupying Huangli Island. Huangli Island was still an important place for Jinling, and it was also a training ground for many 4th and 5th generation adepts. Not only that, it was also their favorite training ground. Because for those who could complete the training here, the rewards would all be extremely tempting. On this point, both Lu Ping and Hu Lili were extremely generous. This was also one of the reasons why everyone in Jinling allowed Lu Ping to control Huangli Island. Even now, when he wasn't in Huangli Island, no one dared to find fault with him. And at this moment, Jiang Tianlin sensed that there was someone staring at him from afar. His senses were extremely sharp, and when he turned his head, he saw an extremely delicate and pretty girl with a hint of charm. Presumably, this was the confidant who had been assisting Lu Ping in managing Soundwave Island. However, why was this girl looking at him with such a strange gaze? It was as if there was something hidden in her gaze that was hard to fathom. Jiang Tianlin chased this strange feeling out of his mind and calmed himself down. However, he suddenly discovered that this feeling still existed. This time, it seemed like he had some sort of connection with this little girl. Jiang Tianlin and Laozi looked deeply at Qi Lianing. There was some doubt in their eyes, but in the end, they didn't discover anything special. In the end, they just laughed involuntarily and looked at Yin Xianchu. Yin Xianchu was still extremely respectful towards Jiang Tianlin. He bowed towards him, but still didn't call him martial uncle. Jiang Tianlin didn't mind. When he saw the surging aura around Yin Xianchu, his eyes brightened. Peak of Core Forging, 9th Grade Golden Core. Not bad, not bad, not bad at all. Tianfeng Laozu also smiled with great gratification. It was obvious that he already knew about Yin Xuanchu's advancement. It could be seen that Yin Xuanchu's advancement to the peak of core forging was before Ji Xuanchuan's advancement to the 9th layer core forging. Jiang Tianlin then looked at the dying cultivator lying on the ground. However, what Jiang Tianlin didn't notice was that when Jiang Tianlin's gaze met Qi Lianning's, Lu Ping was also watching his expression without anyone noticing. Jiang Tianlin seemed to be moved, but in the end, he couldn't discover anything. Lu Ping suddenly felt two kinds of feelings in his heart. One seemed to be lost, and the other was pride. The restriction on Qi Lianning's face had been dissolved by him, but Qi Lianning was determined to make Lu Ping change her original appearance again. She even made Lu Ping seal it personally, not letting anyone else see it except him. Although Ji Xianxian and Yin Xianchu knew about this, they naturally wouldn't spread the news. With Lu Ping's methods, after changing Qi Lianning's appearance and sealing it again, even Tianfeng Laozu, who was proficient in restrictive spells, couldn't see through it. This time, even Jiang Tianlin couldn't see through it. Just these two things alone naturally gave Lu Ping enough reason to be proud. A mid-Dharma adept! Jiang Tianlin frowned slightly and waved his right sleeve. A light breeze blew, and the cultivator lying on the ground was gently lifted and turned over. Why is it him? Lu Ping looked at the cultivator on the ground in surprise. Tianfeng Laozu and the others all looked at Lu Ping. Tianfeng Laozu was the first to ask. Why, do you know him? Lu Ping nodded and said, What a coincidence. This person is none other than the Northern Alliance cultivator, Lin Jingtang, whom I mentioned before. I didn't expect him to be unable to escape in the end. Now that his life is gone, I'm afraid he can't be saved. Tianfeng Laozu suddenly became interested and said, Let's see if we can save him and get something from him before he dies. Chapter 1090. Lu Ping pondered for a moment, then rummaged through his storage artifact. He found a dozen needle-shaped artifacts that had been left behind at some point. He then took out a jade bottle, opened it, and dipped the needle-shaped artifacts into it. When they came out, the entire artifact turned a golden color. At the same time, Lu Ping's purplish-blue inner yuan flowed under this golden color. If not for this, how could these needle-shaped artifacts not be corroded by the power of the myriad poison serum? The needle-shaped artifacts flew up one by one. Lu Ping's hands moved quickly, and in just a moment, he had stabbed the needles into different parts of Lin Jingtang's body. Lin Jingtang, who had already fallen into a coma, suddenly shook his body, and then his entire body straightened. His tightly closed eyes suddenly opened, and his eyeballs almost popped out. He let out a strange cry, and his entire body twitched violently. Drops of black blood began to seep out from his nose and ears. When the convulsions gradually stopped, Lin Jingtang's eyes also began to gradually regain their vigor, and became brighter and brighter. It was obvious that he was in the final stages of recovery. It's you! Lin Jingtang's gaze swept across Tianlin, Tianfeng, Xianchu, and the others. In the end, his gaze landed on Lu Ping and a hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. Lu Ping smiled and said, It's me. What a coincidence. I'm sure you understand the injuries on your body, so I won't say much. Hurry up, if there's anything you want to tell me, I'll try my best to do it. At least we didn't get to know each other in vain. Lin Jingtang closed his eyes slightly, then opened them again, and said, I'm at the end of my life. To be able to wake me up in such a situation, you truly are a master alchemist comparable to Yan Wujiu. Lu Ping smiled and said, I used a secret technique. After the medicine's effects run out, you'll die for sure. There's not much time left. Lin Jingtang's expression was calm as he smiled, and said, I understand what you mean. The Northern Alliance will not be able to escape this time. I never thought that the human and demon races would actually work together on this matter. What you said earlier was right. Rather than letting the 8 major sects and the 3 major tribes take away the Northern Alliance's heritage, it's better to leave it to a medium-sized sect like Xinling. When you rise in the future, there will definitely be conflicts of interest with these sections. I'm sure they won't be happy then, haha. At this moment, Lin Jingtang was clearly a little deranged. Lu Ping frowned slightly. He felt that he should stop him, but he was afraid that it would backfire. However, Lin Jingtang himself suddenly calmed down at this moment. He said coldly, "As long as you agree to help me kill someone, I'll tell you a secret treasure of the Northern Alliance." Don't worry, this secret treasure is extremely well hidden. It was originally jointly managed by Uncle Master Gui Chui and I. Aside from that, only the other two great cultivators and an elder of the Alliance know where the secret treasure is. However, apart from Uncle Master Gui Chui and I, no one else can take it away in a short amount of time. Lu Ping did not immediately agree. Instead, he asked, "Who do you want to kill?" Lin Jingtang suddenly smiled, and then a sliver of hatred appeared on his face. He said, "Han Ye." Lu Ping was stunned, but Tianfeng Laozu had already leapt to his feet. He said, "What? Han Ye? Han Ye Laozu? The great cultivator from your Northern Alliance who left the Alliance? Are you kidding me? How can he kill him?" Lin Jingtang did not explain at all to Tianfeng Laozu's question. Instead, he laughed even harder. Like adding fuel to the fire, he revealed an even more shocking secret. Not only is he a great cultivator of the late Dharma stage, but he is also a spy that Wishing Schools sent to the Alliance. The reason why the Alliance fell apart was because of this person. Now that he has broken out of the door, he will definitely return to the Broken Water Division of Wishing School, hee. Wishing School, one of the 5 sacred grounds of Central Plains. Tianfeng Laozu stopped shouting, and everyone fell silent. Only Lin Jingtang's strange laughter could be heard as he lay on the ground. It was as if he was mocking everyone for being intimidated by Han Ye Laozu's background, or as if he was mocking the destruction of the Northern Alliance. Lu Ping suddenly said, "What is in the hidden treasure?" Lin Jingtang's laughter stopped abruptly. Even Jiang Tianlin Laozu had to stop him now. He said, "Don't be rash." Lin Jingtang sat up from the ground with a whoosh, and then began to breathe heavily. Black blood dripped from his nostrils onto his clothes, but he tried his best to raise his head so that he could look up at Lu Ping. Hee hee. Lin Jingtang laughed again and said, "It's a cave of inheritance, and inside it is the resting place of the Northern Alliance's alchemists. How about it? As long as you swear an oath, I will immediately tell you the location of this cave and give you the method to take it away." The alchemist's place of inheritance, the treasure cave. Lu Ping was stunned. When he first came to the East Sea to participate in the Northern Alliance's alchemists' meeting, he was in the top 6 and had the opportunity to enter the Northern Alliance's alchemist's place of inheritance. He had also obtained great benefits from it. The black prison poison fire in his hands was originally obtained from the treasure cave. However, at that time, the treasure cave that Lu Ping had entered was in danger of collapsing. The Northern Alliance had selected so many excellent alchemists to enter it to save the various alchemists' places of inheritance in the cave. So the treasure cave that Lin Jingtang was talking about was probably the place that the Northern Alliance used to store the alchemists' places of inheritance. You are an alchemist. You should know the importance of the Northern Alliance's alchemists' resting place of inheritance. This is one of the most valuable places of inheritance in the Alliance. This time, Lin Jingtang was afraid that Lu Ping would give up, so he continued. Moreover, the old man does not want you to kill Han Ye now. After all, that guy is a late Dharma adept. But if you have the chance in the future, you must kill him. He betrayed the Northern Alliance and betrayed Uncle Gui. It's a pity that Uncle Gui was possessed and became a partner with him. He did not listen to Uncle Chuye's advice at all. Otherwise, he would not have come to this. Lin Jingtang's words were still very clear at first, but towards the end, his consciousness began to blur. Many secrets about the Northern Alliance began to be revealed by him, but his words were not very clear. Although Lu Ping was also very interested in these secrets, Lin Jingtang's condition was obviously getting worse. Until now, he still had not told him the secret of opening and collecting the Heaven's Cave of Inheritance. Lu Ping quickly interrupted him and said, "All right, I promise you that I will take Hanya Laozu's life as a sacrifice to you in the future. Now you can just tell me the location of the Heaven's Cave of Inheritance, as well as the method of opening and collecting it." Lin Jingtang's eyes brightened slightly, and he reluctantly told Lu Ping all this. After that, his consciousness became a little unclear again, and he continued to say, "There was an easier way to open and collect the cave, which was a second tribulation spiritual treasure in Junior Master Chu's hand. Hanya betrayed the Northern Alliance. Now it seems that Chui Laozu's speculation was probably correct, that Hanya came for that spiritual treasure. It was said that the spiritual treasure was left by Chui Laozu, the founder of the Water Break branch of Wishing School. It was not only the spiritual treasure that was most suitable for the divine sense of Water Break, but it also contained a big secret of the Water Break branch. However, Wishing School sneered at this. Now it seems that all the disdain that Wishing School put on was just to cover up. The spiritual treasure must contain the secret of the Water Break branch of Wishing School. Unfortunately, Junior Master Gui Yi didn't believe Junior Master Chu's advice and listened to Hanya's words, thinking that it was Junior Master Chu's slander to his rival and love. Fortunately, even though Junior Master Chu offended Junior Master Gui Yi, he didn't give the spiritual treasure in his hand to Hanya. If Hanya returned to Wishing School, not only would he return empty-handed, but he would also damage the reputation of Wishing School. Lin Jingtang's consciousness was growing fainter and fainter. He could only rely on his instincts to mumble incoherently. However, the contents of his words made everyone look at each other in dismay. Who would have thought that there was such a secret behind the destruction of the Northern Alliance? And that the Five Elements sect, one of the 5 great holy lands of the Central Plains, was the mastermind behind this incident? Lu Ping's hand flashed, and a pair of purple gold scissors appeared in Lu Ping's hand. The 2 mantises ran back and forth on Lu Ping's palm and arm, jabbering. "What are you doing?" "I'm fixing that stupid gourd." "You're getting more and more arrogant. You're even more arrogant than me. Why did you call me out?" Lu Ping ignored the mantises hooting and ignored the surprise on the faces of Tianfeng and Tianlin Laozu. Instead, he extended the scissors to Lin Jingtang and said, "Look, is this the spirit treasure you were talking about?" "Heaven's will!" Lin Jingtang's eyes widened, and he wanted to say something, but he only managed to say one word. Then, he spat out mouthfuls of black blood. He stretched out his arm as if he wanted to grab the scissors in Lu Ping's hand, but in the end, his arm fell to the ground. Lu Ping put away the spirit treasure and said, "Don't worry, I will never let Han Ye or anyone from Wishing School get their hands on this pair of scissors." Lin Jingtang's shout suddenly stopped, and he finally closed his eyes. Then, his whole body began to smile in the black blood. In the blink of an eye, there was only a pool of black blood seeping into the sand and a storage magic tool left on the ground. Lu Ping nodded at Qi Lianing and said, "Set up a nameless monument here." With a wave of his hand, he picked up the storage artifact on the ground and scanned it with his divine thought. Then, he handed it to Jiang Tianlin and said with a smile, "I really didn't squeeze all the spirit stones out of this guy. There are still 200 highest-grade spirit stones in it." Jiang Tianlin weighed the storage artifact in his hand and nodded. "This matter has been settled. It's time to prepare for Qianyuan City. Let's go back to Jingzhi Island first." Tianfeng Laozu suddenly became anxious and said, Hey, don't go. What's the matter with the scissors? It's a second tribulation spirit treasure. Tell me, this is the 3rd second tribulation spirit treasure of our sect. Hey, don't go." Chapter 1091. Xunling did not have a complete and huge inheritance of alchemists like the Northern Alliance, not to mention using a superior Grotto Heaven magic treasure to accommodate all kinds of inheritance tests left behind by past alchemists. This kind of inheritance test could often choose the most suitable alchemist to inherit the alchemist's legacy, which would also allow the alchemist to go further and higher in the future. Since the founding of Xunling, even in the most glorious era of Taishan Laozu, there had never been such a grand occasion like now where there were 3 alchemists at the same time, not to mention that in addition to these 3 alchemists, Junling also had 8 or 9 master alchemists. Many cultivators in the North Sea believe that the reason why Junling was able to rise so quickly was that Junling had the most powerful alchemist group in the North Sea, which could provide sufficient alchemy for the entire Junling. As the person in charge of the entire Junling Pill Pavilion, Tianlu Laozu naturally had the idea of establishing a perfect alchemist inheritance system. To realize this idea, a very important reason was to have a grotto heaven that was specially used to bury alchemists, so that the inheritance tests set by these alchemists could be completely preserved. Tianlu Laozu, who had already reached the end of his life, was now thinking about this. As the other 2 alchemists with the highest status in Junling, Tianqin Laozu and Lu Ping naturally knew what Tianlu Laozu was thinking. Unfortunately, a grotto heaven magic treasure was not so easy to obtain. Originally, Jiang Tianlin Laozu had obtained a full void treasure restriction in a secret place in the Ying Tian sect. It was a rare grotto heaven magic treasure that had smelted 8 treasures, and its quality was even higher than the Jade Cave grotto heaven. It was an ideal magic treasure to carry the inheritance. Unfortunately, this magic treasure was obviously used as a spiritual herb garden, so Tianlu Laozu was naturally reluctant to destroy the spiritual herb garden to build a place of inheritance. Now that he was presented with such a great opportunity to obtain the North Alliance's alchemist's legacy mystic treasure, Lu Ping didn't even hesitate to swear an oath to kill a great cultivator. Hundreds of miles away from Qianyuan City, above the sea, Lu Ping and Jiang Tianlin covered their faces and flew all the way there. They landed on a deserted reef. Along the way, even with their level of cultivation, the 2 of them were still on tenterhooks. Early Dharma, mid-Dharma, late Dharma, humans, demons, all kinds of auras appeared within the range of their divine will from time to time. This caused the 2 of them to have to carefully avoid all kinds of intertwining divine will auras, deeply afraid that they would provoke something powerful. This time, the Northern Alliance was really doomed. Even if Mara's army could not break through Qianyuan City in the end, how could the various sects and clans that had already infiltrated the vicinity of Qianyuan Island let their trip be in vain? The 2 of them landed on the deserted reef, but for a moment neither of them spoke. Witnessing the fall of a large sect with their own eyes, the 2 of them felt a little sad for a moment. The Northern Alliance actually did not have to be destroyed, it was just that with such a large number of forces gathered here, the Northern Alliance had to be destroyed. Martial Uncle, when will the 2 martial granduncles arrive? Lu Ping asked Jiang Tianlin, who was beside him. Tian Fan and Tian Shui had already snuck into the Eastern Sea ahead of them. They had agreed to meet here. Seeing the chaotic situation outside of Qianyuan Island, even if Tian Fan and Tian Shui had the strength to contend against a peak realm cultivator, they still couldn't help but feel worried. Jiang Tianlin and Laozi looked at the sun, silently calculating the time, and said, "They should be here soon." Indeed, not long after, 2 rays of light flew over, sticking close to the surface of the sea. After landing on the deserted reef, who else could it be but Tian Fan and Tian Shui, the 2 Laozi? However, at this moment, the 2 of them looked a little battered, as if they had just gone through a fierce battle. Jiang Tianlin hurriedly went forward and said, "Did the 2 martial uncles meet a strong enemy? Are you injured?" Tian Fan Laozi had an expression of lingering fear as he said, "This Qianyuan Island has simply become a tiger's den and a wolf's den. If not for the fact that both sides have their own misgivings and aren't willing to reveal their identities, I'm afraid it wouldn't be easy for us to escape." Tian Shui Laozi saw Lu Ping at the side, and his eyes lit up. "Brat, you came at the right time. Give me one of your qi recovery pills." Lu Ping unwillingly handed over a jade bottle and muttered softly, "This disciple has refined quite a lot of these pills. Don't tell me you don't have any on you." Tian Shui Laozi glared at him and said, "What are you saying? With an alchemist grandmaster like you here, why would your martial granduncle need to use my own pills?" Finishing his sentence, he took out a pill from Lu Ping's jade bottle and swallowed it. After that, he passed the jade bottle to Tian Fan Laozu. Tian Fan Laozu smiled at Lu Ping and took out a pill from his bottle. After that, he was about to return the jade bottle to Lu Ping. Unexpectedly, it was snatched away by Tian Shui Laozu. This brat has always been rich. There's no need to be polite with him. After saying that, he unceremoniously kept the jade bottle into his interspatial mystic artifact. Lu Ping could only chuckle foolishly. Jiang Tianlin seemed to be familiar with Tian Shui Laozu's character. Regarding Tian Shui Laozu's teasing of Lu Ping, he turned a blind eye to it. He turned to Tian Fan Laozu and asked, "Martial uncles, how's your harvest this time?" Tian Fan Laozu's expression was grave as he replied, "It can be considered that we've gained something. It's just that the various powers that have entered the Northern Alliance's territory are very complicated. Many of the powers that originally belonged to the Northern Alliance have been wiped out. Fortunately, these powers that have entered the Northern Alliance are mostly hiding their heads but showing their tails. They have a tacit understanding with each other, restraining each other. As a result, there weren't any major conflicts. Your Marshal and Tian Shui and I managed to gain some benefits." After Tian Shui Laozu took Lu Ping's bottle of pills for himself, he didn't seem to be embarrassed at all. His expression was normal as he said, "This time, we've gained something from the Northern Alliance's territory. In this Qianyuan city, we're just helping out a little. The water inside is too deep. Along the way, we've already met 4 to 5 late Dharma realm cultivators' auras. How many did we not discover? These people are all people with powerful backgrounds. Our Jinling city cannot be compared to them." When Jiang Tianlin heard that, he laughed bitterly and said, "This time, I'm afraid that even if we don't fight with these powerful sects, we won't be able to." Seeing the two's questioning gazes, Jiang Tianlin told them about Lin Jingtang's matter to Laozu. Tian Shui Laozu looked at Lu Ping and muttered, "As expected, he's a lucky kid. He even managed to get his hands on a second tribulation spiritual treasure. However, the Wuxing school is still a problem. We need to plan properly." Tian Fan Laozu muttered to himself for a moment. His expression revealed a trace of ruthlessness as he said, "This risk is worth taking. Not to mention that the Northern Alliance's hidden heavenly abode is hidden very well. In the entire Northern Alliance, only a few people know about it. Even if it's discovered by someone, as long as it's not pure Yang Laozu, your Marshal and Tian Shui and I can join hands to stop them. When the time comes, the two of you can work together to obtain that hidden heavenly abode." Tian Shui Laozu also said, "If we really manage to obtain this treasure, then this trip to the Eastern Sea will be considered a success. It's not suitable for us to participate in the matters of the Northern Alliance. No matter what kind of treasure we come across, we just need to let it go. This way, we don't want to be too greedy and attract the attention of others." Since they had already decided on a plan, the 4 of them concealed themselves and started to approach Heaven Essence City. By then, Heaven Essence City had fallen into a precarious state. And Mo Luo, who was outside the city, was furiously attacking the great array protecting the island. Due to that, several openings had been opened up. Chapter 1092. From the very beginning, the Northern Alliance had already sown the seeds of disintegration. The reason for the Northern Alliance's founding was very simple. It was to find a way out for the large number of lone practitioners who had gathered in the northern region of the East Sea training world. The so-called Northern Alliance was just an alliance of lone practitioners in the northern seas. It was precisely because of the founding purpose of the Northern Alliance that the Northern Alliance adhered to the spirit of all rivers run into the sea, all flowers bloom together, and constantly absorbed the elites among the lone practitioners. It was also because of this reason that the Northern Alliance had only been founded 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, from a loose alliance of lone practitioners, under the influence of the Crystal Palace, to a truly large sect. And in the thousands of years since then, the Northern Alliance had always maintained a stable development and status. At its peak, it once had 6 Dharma adepts, and at the very least, it had 3 Dharma adepts guarding Qianyuan Island. However, It was also because of this continuous absorption of elite practitioners that the Northern Alliance had not been able to truly establish a complete legacy system that belonged to the Northern Alliance itself. Those practitioners who were absorbed into the Northern Alliance might have extremely high qualifications and talents, but they had a kind of alienation from the Northern Alliance. They had no feelings for the Northern Alliance at all. At most, it was a mutual exchange of interests and mutual dependence, but there was no emotional connection. There were very few people who would truly contribute all that they had learned without reservation, using it as a basis for establishing a sect and perfecting its legacy. Furthermore, most of those who did so were lone practitioners. Although they were talented, most of them had incomplete legacies, and being able to train to the late Dharma stage was already a blessing from the heavens. It would be extremely difficult to form a pure yang Dharma power, and as for achieving the real soul, that was even more of a joke. There were many sects that had tens of thousands of years of legacies in the world of training, no matter big or small, but there had never been a large sect like the Northern Alliance. Since its founding, there had not been a single pure yang practitioner, not even the pure yang Laozu. This was also why the Northern Alliance had always been looked down upon by the major sects, and even those who were not as strong as them. The root cause was that the Northern Alliance had never sorted out a complete legacy system. These practitioners who joined the Northern Alliance midway had their own backgrounds and experiences, and they had long formed their own values. Because they did not have a sense of community, after these practitioners joined the Northern Alliance, they were naturally undisciplined, and they had formed their own selfish values after they joined the Northern Alliance. This caused them to either do whatever they wanted, or fight for power, and form their own factions. As time passed, the Northern Alliance's already lax rules became even more restrictive. The practitioners who joined the Northern Alliance could not differentiate between the good and the bad. Many of them had a bad reputation in the world of training, and there were even some rebellious sects who joined the Northern Alliance as a form of protection. This made the Northern Alliance even more envious and hateful, but there was nothing they could do about it. However, when the Northern Alliance finally came to an end due to their own reasons, the sects and forces who had previously endured would not mind stepping on them at this time, and artificially speed up the process. Therefore, the mountain-guarding formation of Qianyuan Island was broken so abruptly without any warning. As a result, the devil army that was attacking crazily was in a trance for a moment. Then, they let out bloodthirsty roars and charged into Qianyuan City. Without the mountain protection formation to rely on, even if the Mara's army had lost enough strength, it was still not something the cultivators of the Northern Alliance could stop. The entire Qianyuan Island suddenly became a slaughterhouse. As expected, the great formation has been broken. Lu Ping looked at the huge island with a radius of thousands of miles from a distance. This place would soon become the target of the human and demon races, as well as dozens of small and large forces. This formation must be broken. Jiang Tianlin also said the same. Tianfen Laozu opened the folding fan in his hand with a hua la sound, then slowly folded it again. He said, "Let's go, someone is moving again. We need to find the Heaven's inheritance of the Northern Alliance pill house as soon as possible." Although Mara had been exhausted by the cultivators of the Northern Alliance using the island protection formation, the Northern Alliance themselves were also exhausted. Not to mention, after a series of attacks, the morale of the Northern Alliance had long been low. When Mara suddenly attacked Qianyuan Island, both sides almost launched a mutual destruction strategy. At this time, the forces that had been lurking outside Qianyuan Island finally moved. Along the way, not only did Mara fall, but even the cultivators of the Northern Alliance died inexplicably, or the cultivators of the Northern Alliance who were fighting with Mara also died at the same time. The people who attacked were all hidden in the dark, but each of them had a high cultivation base, and their methods were more ruthless than the last. This situation was only discovered by the high-ranking cultivators of the Northern Alliance when the battle reached Qianyuan Hall. At this time, the cultivators of the Northern Alliance realized that things were developing in a direction that they could not accept. Although the remaining cultivators of the Northern Alliance were mainly cultivators cultivated by the Northern Alliance, there were still many cultivators who were originally rogue cultivators and came from small forces, but later joined the Northern Alliance. These cultivators saw that the Northern Alliance's power was lost, and that the mysterious power hiding in the dark was clearly trying to destroy the entire Northern Alliance. So, they all shouted that they wanted to sever their ties with the Northern Alliance, praying that they could escape with their lives. Unexpectedly, these people did not get the mercy of the various forces hiding in the dark. The cultivators who came from the Northern Alliance's lineage system, under the double blow of anger and despair, cursed spineless, scum, traitor, and so on. They took the initiative to kill the cultivators of the former alliance, and in an instant, a tragic scene of mutual destruction played out in front of Qianyuan Hall. From beginning to end, the only great cultivator of the Northern Alliance, Geyi Laozu, did not show himself, nor did he do anything to stop the slaughter. It was as if Laozu had long since abandoned his disciples. This caused the cultivators of the Northern Alliance to feel even more despair. Many of the more violent cultivators saw this, and after killing those who begged for mercy, they chose to commit suicide. The scene unfolding in front of Qianyuan Hall seemed to signal the final curtain call of the Northern Alliance. But the surroundings were still silent. Only the majestic Qianyuan Hall stood tall. Its wide entrance seemed to mock the cowardice of the cultivators hiding in the shadows. It was like a bloody maw opened wide like a sacrificial bull. It was unknown when, but several cultivators had appeared in the square of Qianyuan Hall. They seemed to be confronting each other, or discussing something. A moment later, their feet moved in unison, and their ethereal bodies suddenly disappeared into Qianyuan Hall. Silent battles played out all over Qianyuan Island. In order to snatch everything on Qianyuan Island, many cultivators would often fight each other for something they wanted. However, these fights often lasted only for a moment. Everyone knew that now was not the time to fight, but the time to snatch. They would not fight to the death for a single treasure, nor would they lose the chance to obtain more treasures. Lu Ping's group of 4 rushed through Qianyuan Island. Along the way, the 4 of them had fought several unfamiliar cultivators. Fortunately, the 4 of them were not weaklings. When they moved together, their opponents would often retreat. Even if they encountered a stronger cultivator, the 4 of them would just take a detour. In any case, they were not after the treasures that others wanted, so they did not want to get into conflict with others. After a while, the 4 of them walked in a more desolate direction. Suddenly, Tianfan Laozu stopped and sniffed the breeze. He said, "Someone is going in the same direction as us. Moreover, they are in front of us." In a remote area of Qianyuan Island, there were ravines everywhere, but it was extremely desolate. At a glance, one could tell that it was a barren place with extremely few cultivation resources. At this moment, 2 black shadows were rushing through it. "Teacher, where are we going?" Immortal Qin looked at the gloomy Hongye Laozu and carefully asked. "We are looking for something that can save our lives," Hongye Laozu said with a gloomy face. "It is a pity that senior sister Geyi has lost her mind and is unwilling to make a comeback. However, the old man wants to preserve the qi of inheritance for the Northern Alliance." As soon as he finished speaking, an earth-shaking explosion came from the direction of Qianyuan Hall. The entire Qianyuan Island was shaken by the explosion. Then, there were several roars of pain, like that of a wounded beast, and a woman's sharp and mournful laughter. Hongye Laozu and Immortal Qin stopped at the same time. Hongye Laozu's face flashed with sorrow, but his voice was calm and cold. "It's your senior Aunt Geyi. She has fallen in Qianyuan Hall." Immortal Qin felt an inexplicable chill. Qianyuan Hall was one of the Northern Alliance's most important heaven's inheritance. Geyi Laozu would rather die in glory than live in dishonor. Sure enough, a shout was heard. "Geyi, you're crazy!" "Ha ha ha ha!" Geyi Laozu's laughter sounded like a ghost crying in the dark. "Didn't you want to take advantage of the situation? Why do you have to hide like this? Don't tell me I can't recognize you? Yuanli from the Crystal Palace, Ziyu Xiao from the Purple Talisman Pavilion, Lei Jingtian from the Wind and Thunder Island, and a few from the South Sea. I didn't expect there to be a few from the Demon Clan. How can I, Geyi, Have so many people to accompany me in death. Ha ha! This woman is crazy. Let's join hands and kill her first. A loud shout was heard. A ray of light cut through the dark sky, and then more light rays rose in the night sky. Ha ha, didn't you want to rob the Northern Alliance of everything? Here you go. Be careful, it's Guiye's second disaster spiritual treasure. Oh no, she's going to explode the spiritual treasure. Hide. Boom. A huge mushroom cloud shook the entire Qianyuan island again. There were muffled groans, screams, and curses. Guiyi Laozu immediately turned around and said, "Let's go!" There was a hint of bitterness in her voice. Guiyi Laozu moved even faster. Immortal Qin looked at the mushroom cloud in the distance. He could still faintly hear Guiyi Laozu's mournful laughter and coughing due to serious injuries. Immortal Qin turned around and looked at Guiyi Laozu's bleak back, which was already dozens of feet away. The conveyance light under his feet sped up to catch up. Chapter 1093. Lu Ping's group of 4 crossed the desolate valley and arrived at the edge of a poisonous swamp. This was where Lin Jingtang had mentioned that Laozu had secretly stored the alchemist's inheritance grotto heaven. This poisonous swamp was well hidden and located in such a desolate place. Usually, very few practitioners of the Northern Alliance would be willing to come here. Moreover, when Laozu had entered the sky wall of poisons, he had taken a great risk to gather all the poisons inside and build this swamp. Even if a Dharma adept were to stay in it for a long time, they would slowly be affected by the poisons. However, this swamp naturally could not stop Lu Ping's group of 4. A dark light flashed across Jiang Tianlin and the other 3's bodies. It was Lu Ping's dark prison fire. As for Lu Ping, he was completely immune to all poisons, so moving through the swamp was like walking on flat ground. Just then, the 4 of them seemed to have noticed something at the same time. They immediately stopped and concealed their auras, carefully moving forward. "Ah! You traitorous disciple, how dare you! Master, you can't blame me for this. The Northern Alliance no longer exists. I can't accompany you on this path. Cough, cough, you traitorous disciple! To think that the old man trusted you so much. The old man must have been blind. Master, can't you see it clearly? Today, the entire overseas cultivation world is going to destroy the Northern Alliance. How are we going to continue the Northern Alliance? With just the 2 of us, master and disciple? With this inheritance grotto heaven treasure? Master, you're too naive. The various sects and clans of the overseas cultivation world will not allow us to live under the banner of the Northern Alliance. You can live if you kill the old man. Without the old man's protection, what are you? Cough, 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 cough. Wrong, master, you're wrong again. What are we? He was an alchemist. Although I, Qin, am not as good as you, teacher, but I am also a senior alchemy grandmaster. As long as I change my appearance, which sect will not welcome me? Sigh, it would be great if you were the same, master. With your position, you and I would be protected better if we decided to join any sect. Alas, I've tried to sound you out along the way, but you're determined to continue the legacy of the Northern Alliance. I don't want to die with you. I'm sorry, master. Do you think that you can obtain the Heaven's Cave inheritance just because you killed the old man? Do you think that you can survive? Haha, you don't have to worry about that. Uncle Hanye has already promised me that as long as I go, I will be the chief alchemist. Uncle Hanye has a deep relationship with Wishing School, so he will definitely return to Wishing School in the future. When that time comes, I will be able to advance to the Dharma stage and become an alchemist grandmaster. It will not be a problem for me to reach your current position. So you've been in cahoots with Hanye for a long time. That's right, the talisman weapon you used to kill the old man was also left by Hanye for you. You evil disciple, you will die a horrible death. Haha, I don't know if I will die a horrible death, but master, you are really going to die now. It's too early for you to be happy. The power of a Dharma adept is not something you can understand. What? What is this? intentional combat pill. Ah! In the darkness, a few rays of light suddenly appeared and then extinguished. Then, everything became quiet again. The appearance of 4 black shadows suddenly broke the silence of the night. Looking at the 2 people lying on the ground, one of them suddenly said in surprise, "So it's these 2 people. Who are they?" A woman's voice asked. "That old man is the alchemist of the Northern Alliance, Hongye Laozu. The other one is his disciple, surnamed Qin. He is also an alchemist. It's just an internal conflict between master and disciple. Alright, it's more important to find the cloudy mist bottle." It was Lu Ping and the others. According to Lin Jingtang, the North Alliance's alchemist's grotto heaven of inheritance was placed here by progenitor Chu Yi. The name of the grotto heaven was the Crimson Meteor Vase. "It's here." Jiang Tianlin was the first to discover the clues. However, when the rest of them walked to the front, they all frowned. The main body of the cloudy mist bottle was only a 3-foot-tall bottle with a thin neck. However, it was currently imprisoned in the swamp, leaving only a 3-inch-tall bottle mouth. The rest of the bottle was buried in the swamp filled with all kinds of poisons. Tianfan Laozu examined it carefully and said, "There are at least 4 earth veins restricting the bottle's body. The moment we try to break free, the bottle will overturn in the swamp. All sorts of poisonous substances and mud will enter the cave inheritance from the bottle opening. It's enough to destroy all the inheritances in the cave inheritance." Tian Shui Laozu also said, "According to Lin Jingtang's direction, although we can safely retrieve this cave inheritance, it will take too long. Right now, the entire Qianyuan Island is like a night parade of 100 ghosts. We are only ahead by a step because of our foresight. Once we hesitate, it's hard to guarantee that others won't find this place." Tian Shui Laozu said that the current Qianyuan Island was like a night parade of 100 ghosts. However, she didn't know that she was also one of the 100 ghosts. A golden light flashed in Lu Ping's hand, and a pair of scissors appeared in his hand. "If there's no other way, we can only use this method to remove the firewood from the bottom of the cauldron. We will forcefully cut off the earth veins that are restricting the spiritual treasure." The mantis appeared on Lu Ping's arm, and a pair of large blades waved majestically. "Finally, it's my turn to appear. You guys can be at ease. No matter what kind of earth veins or spiritual veins it is, we will just cut them off." "Eh? Why does this place look so familiar? Have I been here before?" Jiang Tianlin Laozu nodded his head. "That's the only thing we can do to prevent any unforeseen events. The 2 martial uncles and I will open this cave inheritance, and you will take the opportunity to cut off the earth veins that are restricting the cave inheritance. This way, it will definitely cause a huge commotion, but it will also buy us some time. As long as we can escape before the people on the island can react, this trip to Qianyuan Island will be considered a success." Jiang Tianlin, Tian Fan, and Tian Shui, the 3 Laozu used all kinds of divine abilities to seal the mouth of the jade bottle. After that, the 3 of them looked at each other and said, "Rise." The 3 of them exerted their strength at the same time, and the cloudy mist bottle was lifted up. Within the swamp, with the cloudy mist bottle as the center, 4 bulges appeared, firmly restricting the cloudy mist bottle. Even with the 3 middle-phase Laozu's combined strength, they were still unable to move the cloudy mist bottle out of the swamp. The entire poisonous mist swamp immediately boiled, and a dull rumbling sound echoed from afar, causing the entire ground to tremble. "Quick, there will be people coming over soon." Lu Ping held the golden water-cutting scissors in his hand and used it to cut one of the earth veins. 2 rays of golden light shot into the swamp, intersecting with each other. Pun! Just like a rope being forcefully pulled apart, the earth veins were cut off, and the bulging ground once again sank, leaving behind a 10 feet wide and 10 feet deep trench that extended far into the night. "Not good, the others will follow the trench and chase us here. Quickly cut." Jiang Tianlin Laozu saw that the situation was far from good, and hurriedly urged Lu Ping to act as soon as possible. Lu Ping's expression turned solemn, and the true yuan in his body surged like a surging river. The vigorous true yuan unceasingly poured into the scissors. Pun! Pun! Pung! 3 earth veins were cut off by the spiritual treasure in Lu Ping's hand, and a muffled ping sound rang out. Lu Ping then heard Tian Fan and Tian Shui Laozu shout, "Not good!" After losing the restriction of 4 earth veins, the cloud mist vase actually broke free from the 3 Laozu's restriction and flew into the sky. A straight jade pillar of light shot into the sky from the ground where the cloud mist vase was located. It was actually a large spirit vein. Just now, the cloud mist vase was condensed by the spirit energy of this large spirit vein, and it broke free from the 3 Laozu's restriction and was sent flying into the sky. This cloud mist vase was actually suppressing a large spirit vein. At this moment, Lu Ping no longer had the time to think about the reason. The commotion in the poison mist swamp had already alarmed the entire Qianyuan island. Numerous rays of light rose from all directions, flying towards the cloud mist vase. In the dark, there were still many cultivators who were unwilling to reveal their identities. Tian Fan, Tian Shui, and Tian Lin, the 3 Laozus simultaneously flew towards the cloud mist vase. However, in the night sky, a black long whip suddenly lashed out. It was faster than the 3 Laozus as it lashed towards the cloud mist vase. "Thief, you dare!" Tian Fan Laozu shouted angrily. In his hand, a cold wind had already slashed towards the night sky. Immediately after, Tian Shui Laozu raised his hand, and a silver-white fog exploded in midair. That black long whip suddenly condensed a lot of ice crystals, causing it to become abnormally stiff. In an instant, it lost its original flexibility. At this moment, 2 golden rays of light crossed each other in midair. This black long whip was, after all, a peak-grade spirit-nurturing treasure. However, in an instant, it was cut into 2 by the golden rays. The half of the long whip that was wrapped around the cloud mist vase immediately fell to the ground. With a flash of light, the cloud mist vase was already in the hands of Jiang Tianlin and Laozu. In the blink of an eye, the 4 of them had not only seized back the treasure, they had also destroyed their opponent's treasure and inflicted heavy injuries on them. 2 groans could be heard from the darkness. Clearly, they had received a blow from Tian Shui Laozu, as well as the damage to their internal organs due to the destruction of their treasures. "The treasure has been cut into 2. Chu Yi Laozu's treasure has actually landed in your hands." A cultivator's frightened voice could be heard from the darkness. Due to his injuries, he seemed to be out of breath. Tian Shui Laozu was about to pounce towards the darkness to silence that person. However, she was pulled back by Tian Fan Laozu. "Hurry up and leave. If we don't leave now, it will be too late." The spiritual chi pillar that soared into the sky was like an extremely conspicuous coordinate. It had already attracted more and more cultivators over. To be able to cause such a huge commotion, even an idiot would know that there must be a treasure of the Northern Alliance hidden here. Furthermore, that person's shout had been heard by many people. The treasure had been cut into 2. Was it the second tribulation's spiritual treasure that Wishing School's Duanshui lineage had left behind and was obtained by Chu Yi Laozu? Just this piece of news was enough to attract the attention of the people on Qianyuan Island. Back then, when Chu Yi Laozu had perished on the illusionary Spirit Island, his second tribulation's spiritual treasure had mysteriously disappeared. At that time, the 8 great sects and the Crystal Palace had announced that the spiritual treasure had been obtained by an assassin. Chapter 1094. Before the 4 of them left, Lu Ping waved his hand and brought the heavily injured and unconscious Hong Yi Laozu into the Golden House. Then, he transmitted a message to Sam Ling to guard him. Even though Hong Yi Laozu was a Dharma cultivator, he was still an alchemist who could even plot against his own sect's disciple. With Sam Ling's current cultivation, not to mention that he was heavily injured, even if he fully recovered, he might not be a match for Sam Ling. When Tian Shui Laozu saw how Lu Ping was acting, she couldn't help but grumble. "What's the point of bringing him along? This fellow is a die-hard member of the Northern Alliance. When the time comes, it's fine if he doesn't submit to our sect. But if everyone knows about it, our sect won't be able to bear the consequences." Lu Ping replied. Grand Uncle might not know this, but when I participated in the Northern Alliance's elixir gathering back then, it could be said that I received this person's grace. Furthermore, this person is the chief alchemist of the Northern Alliance. There's no harm in saving him." As he spoke, Lu Ping took Immortal Qin's storage artifact from the ground and used his divine sense to scan the artifact. After that, he took out a high-grade alchemy furnace and said, "Not bad." Tian Shui Laozu recalled that the old man was an alchemist grandmaster. Looking at the high-grade alchemy furnace in Lu Ping's hand, she said, "Since that's the case, bring him away first. If he doesn't submit, we can only kill him. Leaving him alive will bring disaster to the sect sooner or later." Gui Yi Laozu had perished in the Northern Alliance's most important inheritance secret land, Qianyuan Cave. He had also perished in the explosion of his second tribulation spiritual treasure. In the end, when he tried to destroy the giant spiritual vein on Qianyuan Island, he was finally surrounded and killed by the great cultivators of the various sections. However, even so, it was enough for all the sects to fly into a rage. This time, the various sects had come to divide up the Northern Alliance. From their point of view, everything in the Northern Alliance no longer belonged to the Northern Alliance. Instead, it was the private property of the various sections. The destruction of the Qianyuan Cave, the explosion of the Second Tribulation Spirit Treasure, the self-destruction of Gui Yi Laozu did not damage the giant spirit vein on Qianyuan Island, but it had caused the spirit vein to leak. In addition, Gui Yi Laozu had suffered heavy injuries and fallen cultivators during his self-destruction. This greatly reduced the benefits that the various sects had imagined. In their eyes, Gui Yi Laozu's actions were akin to cutting their flesh. Therefore, when they suddenly discovered that outside of their tacit agreement, there was actually a group of people who had actually evaded their control and snatched a treasure from Qianyuan Island, these people were furious. There was someone who wanted to be the Oreo behind the various sects of the human and demon races. What guts he had! More and more cultivators headed towards the poison fog swamp. Fortunately, the friar had been heavily injured by the four of them previously. At this moment, he no longer dared to follow them. Furthermore, the soaring spiritual Qi light pillar had attracted the attention of many people. Therefore, when the four of them quietly flew out of the poison fog swamp, they did not attract the attention of others. At this moment, Jiang Tianlin Laozu suddenly said, "That's not right. At this moment, everyone is heading towards the poison fog swamp. Only the four of us are heading outwards. It's very easy for others to notice us." Tian Shui Laozu said. "Then, should we head back?" Tian Fan Laozu said. "The risk is too high. Let's change our direction and split into two groups. One group will be in front while the other group will be behind. Just now, we met the friar. He will definitely leak our information. Our group of four will be noticed immediately." Just as Tian Fan Laozu's voice faded, they suddenly heard someone shouting from behind. "Over here! Someone come quickly!" The four of them were instantly startled. The wind snow fans, the wooden block, and the formless water nether sword, these four rank 1 spiritual treasures simultaneously shot towards the source of the voice. The person in the darkness originally had an extremely powerful stealth secret technique. However, a single sentence from him had exposed his location. Seeing 4 rays of light flickering with intense spiritual fluctuations shooting towards him, the person only had time to say, "4 spiritual treasures? What kind of joke is this?" Following which, after a loud explosion, there was no more sound. The four of them didn't dare to speak anymore. The cloudy mist vase returned to Tian Shui Laozu's hands. Tian Shui and Tian Fan Laozu took the lead to change their direction and began to sneak out of the island. As for Lu Ping and Jiang Tianlin, they followed the general direction of the two of them. Right at this moment, in the northwest direction of Qianyuan Island, there was a sudden tremor. When Lu Ping and Jiang Tianlin looked towards the direction where the sound came from, they saw a soaring light flame lighting up in the northwest direction. Intense waves of spiritual qi fluctuated in all directions from the flickering light flame. Obviously, there were people fighting there. Lu Ping and Jiang Tianlin looked at each other. Both of them could see a trace of rejoicing in each other's eyes. Obviously, the battle happening there would greatly reduce the possibility of Lu Ping and the others being discovered. However, before the two of them could finish rejoicing, a series of loud sounds rang out from the surroundings of Qianyuan Island. The sounds of fighting, killing, cursing, and miserable shrieks filled the sky. The entire Qianyuan Island, which had originally sunk into a strange silence, suddenly flared up. Due to fighting over everything left behind by the Northern Alliance on Qianyuan Island, the various powers of the human and demon races had finally lost control. The greed in their hearts caused the different powers to start fighting over one or more treasures. Furthermore, due to the arrival of reinforcements from both sides, the fighting escalated to the point of killing each other for treasures. The entire Qianyuan Island instantly became lively. As one of the few large sects in the overseas region, although the inheritance system of the Northern Alliance had various drawbacks, the overall strength of the Northern Alliance over the past thousands of years was unquestionable. Therefore, the thousands of years of foundation and accumulation of management inevitably caused Qianyuan Island, the headquarters of the Northern Alliance, to hide too many treasures of the Northern Alliance. The human and demon races may have a tacit understanding with each other in certain areas, such as the Northern Alliance's famous inheritance treasures, or Qianyuan City, and so on. But other areas, they couldn't be involved in all aspects, and it was impossible for them to be involved in all aspects. This was also the reason why Lu Ping's group was able to sneak into Qianyuan Island so easily. Even if they were discovered, they were still able to shake off their pursuers. The greater cultivators and the more important mid-stage cultivators had already gathered at the most important locations in the North Alliance. They were discussing how to divide the spoils among themselves. They couldn't care less about the leftovers. The chaos on Qianyuan Island also gave Lu Ping and the others a chance to regroup and break out of Qianyuan Island. After all, at this time, no one had time to care about the four of them. As long as the four of them were careful and did not participate in the battle for treasures, no one would find trouble with the four of them for no reason. However, the four of them carefully stayed away from the whirlpool of fighting, but it did not mean that the battle would not come to them. Two streaks of light came towards the four of them one after the other. It was obvious that the first group was fleeing, while the second group was chasing. Seeing that the situation was not right, Jiang Tianlin shouted anxiously, "Quickly dodge!" The four of them immediately dodged the two streaks of light. The first group of streaks of light passed by the four of them, while the second group was about to catch up. However, an item was suddenly thrown out from the first group of people, landing on Lu Ping and the others. Among the streaks of light in front, one of them cried out in surprise, "Senior brothers and sisters, we will lure them away. You all can bring this item back to the sect." Lu Ping and the others hastily retreated. Tian Fan Laozi said anxiously, "This item has nothing to do with us. Whoever wants it, just take it." However, it was already too late. A few people separated from the last group of people and rushed towards the four of them without any explanation. At the same time, two more people jumped out from the streaks of light and tried to snatch the item that had just landed. Tian Shui Laozi scolded, "Are you guys stupid? Didn't you hear us say that this item has nothing to do with us? Can't you see through such a simple trick to sow discord?" However, the four of them had no choice but to retaliate. In order to not escalate the conflict, the four of them used hand gestures and were suppressed by the 6 cultivators in front of them. However, very quickly, Lu Ping and the others discovered that the situation was not as they had imagined. After the 6 people in front of them snatched the item that had been thrown out by the first group of people, not only did they not retreat, they even increased their attacks because of the 4 of them's passive resistance. This was akin to treating the 4 of them as fat sheep, wanting to reap some benefits from them. Tian Shui Laozi's anger was overflowing. Seeing that the group of people had already chased after the first group of people, and there was no one else in the surroundings, she immediately said, "This old lady has had enough. You 3 men still want to continue acting?" Just as she finished speaking, Jiang Tianlin Laozi had already taken the initiative to attack. However, even though he was fast, Lu Ping was even faster. The cultivator who was fighting with Lu Ping saw that Lu Ping's cultivation was the lowest. Thus, he used the attitude of a cat toying with a mouse to fight with Lu Ping. Lu Ping had long been suppressing his anger. Furthermore, he had already set up a death trap for the people in front of him. Just as Jiang Tianlin Laozu took the initiative to attack, Lu Ping's thin flowing water sword suddenly increased in brightness. Under the panicked gaze of the cultivator in front of him, he counterattacked. Just as the friar was clumsily blocking Lu Ping's attack, which had suddenly increased in power by several times, before he could recover from his shock, the spectral aqua sword had already silently neared his neck. The person in front of him was after all a mid-dharma adept. His intuition, honed by life and death situations, quickly detected the danger. His body abruptly leaned to the side, and the spectral aqua sword slashed across, creating an extremely deep wound on the cultivator's shoulder. However, who was Lu Ping? He was someone who could seriously injure the Jade Shura in a head-on battle. Since when would he take a mid-dharma adept seriously? Just as the cultivator dodged to the side, a small person about a foot tall appeared in front of him. The person's facial features actually bore some resemblance to the early dharma adept that he had fought with earlier. External incarnation. Just as this thought flashed across the cultivator's mind, the small person in front of him wielded a small sword, piercing through the cultivator's eyes. A scream could be heard, giving the other five a shock. When they turned to look, they saw Lu Ping use the blood-orange sword to break through the heavily injured cultivator's defense, and pierce through his core space. Chapter 1095. Just as Lu Ping had effortlessly killed a mid-dharma adept, Tian Fan and Tian Shui, the two Laozus, had also made their move. The two of them combined their strength to rival that of a great practitioner, blocking 4 dharma adepts in one go. Although it was a difficult task, it was enough for them to do so. The 108 leaves in Jiang Tianlin's hands were released simultaneously, breaking through the mid-dharma adept's defense in one go. Immediately after, Jiang Tianlin raised both of his hands and performed a few techniques before pushing his palm forward. The friar's chest suddenly caved in, and he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Withered wood seal. Lu Ping thought to himself. This should be one of the great powers that Jiang Tianlin and Laozu had recently mastered. It was one of the supreme powers recorded in the Ying Tian sex techniques. The friar had been severely injured by Jiang Tianlin, but he did not die. On the contrary, he took the opportunity to retreat as he spat out fresh blood. He shouted, "This is troublesome, let's retreat first." The two companions who were blocked by Tian Fan and Tian Shui had actually been easily killed and injured by the other two. They had long been frightened out of their wits. Without the other person's reminder, they had already shaken off Tian Fan and Tian Shui, and were about to retreat behind the other person. Although Lu Ping and Jiang Tianlin had pretended to be weak and relied on their opponent's carelessness to succeed in their sneak attack, it was still beyond their abilities to kill 4 mid-dharma adepts in one go. However, the 4 of them did not want to stay here any longer, so they turned to leave. However, at this moment, a horrified scream came from afar. When the 4 of them turned to look, they saw a flash of light in the night sky. The first retreating cultivator had already been split into 2 from head to toe. He was dead. Lu Ping's eyes narrowed. He could see clearly that although the flash of light was so short that it was almost covered by the night sky, it was undoubtedly a flash of sword light. "You fellows sure are bold. You dare kill even cultivators from Water Crystal Palace? If you killed them, then so be it. Why didn't you kill the rest of them as well? Are you not afraid that they will find out about you fellows in the future? As far as I know, there are several people in the Crystal Palace who are good at it." The voice rang out unhurriedly in the ears of the 4 of them. Lu Ping's spiritual force swept out in all directions, but he did not discover anyone hiding nearby. What a strong divine sense! I was almost discovered by you." When the voice rang out, a figure appeared in the night sky. His clothes were old but clean, and he looked like a middle-aged scholar who had fallen from grace. He didn't have Jiang Tianlin's elegant temperament, but he seemed to be the center of the world at all times, the darling of fate. Sky-splitting sword saint! Xiao Baiyu, why are you here? The 4 Crystal Palace cultivators immediately let out despairing cries. However, they still tried their best to scatter and flee into the night sky. What a joke! Do you think you can control where I, old Xiao, want to go? The middle-aged scholar waved the long sword in his hand casually in all directions. It didn't look like he was waving the sword, but more like a weak scholar waving the sword in his hand like a fire stick. However, it seemed like a casual wave of the sword, but the 4 mid-Dharma adepts who were fleeing in all directions drew a downward arc in the air. Before they could hit the ground, the 4 of them were either cut in half vertically, cut in half at the waist, or cut in half diagonally from their shoulders to their buttocks. Lu Ping sucked in a breath of cold air. His opponent's swordsmanship was truly domineering and sharp. The middle-aged swordsman casually killed the 4 mid-Dharma adepts from the Crystal Palace before stopping to look at the 4 of them. Lu Ping and the others couldn't help but hold their breaths. In front of such a person, even Lu Ping felt that if this person wanted to kill them, the 4 of them would most likely die here. It's you. We haven't seen each other for so many years. You've become a middle-aged man, but you're still so elegant. Your level of practice has improved a lot. To Lu Ping's surprise, the white-robed practitioner who had arrived in front of the 4 of them suddenly smiled and said this. However, at this time, Lu Ping noticed that Jiang Tianlin Laozu, who was beside him, seemed to be acting strangely. He heard Jiang Tianlin Laozu take a deep breath and say, I've been recognized by you. What's the use of improving quickly? The distance between us is still getting further and further. The middle-aged practitioner, Xiao Baiyu, smiled and did not comment. He turned to Lu Ping and said, Just now, the juniors of my sect were rude. Take that item as a token of my apology to you all. Although Lu Ping and the others did not fight for the item that the first group of practitioners had thrown over, instead giving it to the Crystal Palace practitioners who had followed after, the practitioner who had just died under Lu Ping's hands had snatched the item. After this person died in the hands of Lu Ping, the treasure naturally fell into Lu Ping's hands. Lu Ping took out the treasure from the dead practitioner's storage artifact and showed it to Xiao Baiyu. Senior, why do you say that? This item was obtained by this junior from the Crystal Palace practitioners. Naturally, it belongs to my sect. Since when did it become your sect's item? Huh? Xiao Baiyu looked at Lu Ping and his aura suddenly surged. In an instant, his entire person was like a peerless sword that had sworn to split the heavens and earth. Tian Fan and Tian Shui Laozu both secretly moved behind Lu Ping. If Xiao Baiyu wanted to harm Lu Ping, it would definitely be a life-and-death struggle. Only Jiang Tianlin's expression remained calm from start to finish, and did not make any movements. Under the pressure of Xiao Baiyu's aura, Lu Ping's expression remained calm from start to finish. Only his eyes were constantly flickering with bluish-purple and cyan radiance. He looked at Xiao Baiyu fearlessly. Brat, you have chosen the wrong path. Are you willing to learn the sword from me, old Xiao? Xiao Baiyu's eyes finally revealed a trace of admiration. He didn't care about Jiang Tianlin, Tian Fan, and Tian Shui Laozu as he asked bluntly. Lu Ping's lips moved and finally spoke. He smiled faintly. Senior, how do you know that Junior has chosen the wrong path? Xiao Baiyu said. As a sword cultivator, one should be courageous and diligent. There is nothing outside of the sword. No matter what obstacles there are in front of me, I will use my sword to cut them down. How can I be like you, who used all kinds of methods at once? You might have too many, but your heart is not sincere. Lu Ping said again. Senior thinks that Junior is a sword cultivator. How can I be considered a sword cultivator? Xiao Baiyu was slightly stunned. He then laughed and said, So that's how it is. It seems like you have found your own path. It seems that old Xiao has made an unnecessary move. However, please forgive old Xiao for speaking bluntly. If you continue on this path, you might be invincible under the heavens. However, you will never reach the peak of the sword. Lu Ping said. Thank you for your advice, Senior. What a pity, what a pity! The aura around Xiao Baiyu's body dissipated in an instant. It was as if nothing had happened, showing that he had perfect control over his body. It's a pity that you have such outstanding sword skills. It's a pity that you aren't a pure sword cultivator. It's a pity that I didn't meet you 100 years earlier. Speaking up to here, Xiao Baiyu turned to Jiang Tianlin and said, I heard that your sex situation has been pretty good these few years. It seems like you have the potential to rise again. Originally, old Xiao thought that it was just a flash in the pan. However, from the looks of it now, it isn't completely hopeless. You just need to be careful of the 6 Holy Lands and the Yuan clan. As Xiao Baiyu finished speaking, he suddenly waved the sword in his hand. Before the 4 of them could recover from their shock, they heard a scream coming from the darkness. Immediately, he signaled to Tian Fan and Tian Shui, Laozu, before turning around and walking in the direction he came from. In an instant, he disappeared into the night. The 4 of them were all immersed in the aura released by Xiao Baiyu. Surprisingly, it was Lu Ping who was the first to break free and asked, He is one of Skyren's people? Tian Fan Laozu let out a long sigh and looked at Jiang Tianlin who was beside him. He said, This person is the most outstanding second-generation cultivator of Skyrend. He is known as the Sky-Splitting Sword Sage by the entire world of practitioners. He is one of the strongest practitioners in the world of practitioners. Lu Ping hesitated for a moment before asking, I have checked. Although this person's aura is perfect and he is already at the peak of the late Dharma stage, he has not gone through the 3rd Thunder trial and achieved the pure Yang Dharma. What right does he have to be called the strongest person in the world of practitioners? Jiang Tianlin Laozu sighed faintly and said, That year, when he had just gone through the 2nd Thunder trial and advanced to the late Dharma stage, he personally went to Ziyang Palace and killed the pure Yang Sword Celestial of Ziyang Palace, Lu Taiqing Laozu. After that, he calmly retreated. No one in the entire Ziyang Palace dared to stop him. Tian Shui Laozu also said, This matter was widely spread among the Dharma Laozu at that time. However, with the power and influence of Ziyang Palace, this matter was not widely known. However, no one in the world dared to look down on the name Sky-Splitting Sword Sage. Lu Ping was stunned by what Jiang Tianlin Laozu had said. If it was said that being able to kill a veteran pure Yang Laozu who had just advanced to the late Dharma stage was shocking enough, then being able to retreat from Ziyang Palace, one of the 5 holy lands of the central mainland, was beyond shocking. However, Lu Ping suddenly thought of something and asked, That's not right. According to what I know, there are only 2 great practitioners in Skyren now, but there is no one named Xiao Baiyu Laozu among them. Jiang Tianlin Laozu said. When he returned to the East Sea from Ziyang Palace, he announced that he had severed all ties with Skyrend, and Skyrend subsequently announced that they had expelled him. After that, he defeated a few famous practitioners from the Crystal Palace in the East Sea. Then, he began to travel the entire world of practitioners. In the past 200 years, he has not returned to the East Sea. Now that he has appeared on Qianyuan Island, I don't know what kind of storm he will create in the world of practitioners. Now, his sword is even more terrifying, Jiang Tianlin Laozu said. After he returned to the East Sea from Ziyang Palace, he announced that he had severed all ties with Skyrend, and Skyrend subsequently announced that they had expelled him. After that, he defeated a few famous practitioners from the Crystal Palace in the East Sea. Then, he began to travel the entire world of practitioners. In the past 200 years, he has not returned to the East Sea. This time, he has appeared on Qianyuan Island. I don't know what kind of storm he will cause in the world of practitioners. Now, his sword is even more terrifying. Chapter 1096. When Jiang Tianlin and Lu Tianling traveled to the East Sea, they had a feud with a direct disciple of the Crystal Palace named Yao Luanshan. Yao Luanshan was defeated by Jiang Tianlin. Defeating a direct disciple of the Crystal Palace was a very ambitious thing for a cultivator from a medium-sized sect in the North Sea at that time. It was enough for Jiang Tianlin to be proud. However, Jiang Tianlin accidentally met Xiao Baiyu of Skyrend. Xiao Baiyu, who was also a second-generation disciple, scoffed at the fact that Jiang Tianlin had defeated a direct disciple of the Crystal Palace. The two fought with each other without saying a word. Unexpectedly, Jiang Tianlin was defeated by Xiao Baiyu's sword in less than 10 rounds. At that time, Xiao Baiyu said to Jiang Tianlin in an extremely contemptuous tone, "There had always been no less than 20 direct disciples of the Crystal Palace, and Yao Luanshan must be one of the bottom 20. This was because among the top 10 direct disciples of the Crystal Palace that Xiao Baiyu had defeated, there was no one named Yao Luanshan. Judging from the strength of Jiang Tianlin's strength was at most comparable to the 10th direct disciple of the Crystal Palace who he had defeated." Lu Ping heard from Jiang Tianlin Laozu about how he and Xiao Baiyu met. This extremely disgraceful thing became the shame of his life. After that, Jiang Tianlin used this as motivation to improve his cultivation. He swore to fight with Xiao Baiyu again to avenge the shame of that day. Unexpectedly, Xiao Baiyu's strength improved faster and faster, and his reputation became greater and greater. He even had the strength to be the strongest second-generation cultivator in the cultivation world. The gap between the two grew larger and larger. It wasn't until Xiao Baiyu killed his way into the Purple Sun Palace alone, and killed Pure Yang's sword immortal LV Taiqing that Jiang Tianlin finally extinguished the thought of catching up to Xiao Baiyu in his heart. Lu Ping also knew that Jiang Tianlin Laozu had concealed some things from him. It wasn't because he didn't trust Lu Ping, but because he found it difficult to talk about it. Lu Ping had vaguely learned from Tiafeng Laozu that the reason why Jiang Tianlin Laozu fought with Yao Luanshan was because Yao Luanshan coveted his teacher, Lu Tianling's beauty. As for this Xiao Baiyu, although Lu Ping hadn't heard of it, the process of Jiang Tianlin Laozu getting to know Xiao Baiyu wasn't that simple. The four of them finally left Qianyuan Island. Jiang Tianlin Laozu let out a long sigh of relief. He patted Lu Ping's shoulder and said, "Martial uncle, I'm afraid that I won't have the chance to fight with him again in this life. You must defeat him." After the group returned to Jingzhi Island, Tianfan, Tianxue, and Tianlin Laozu weren't in a hurry to return to the North Sea. Instead, they stayed on Jingzhi Island to observe the situation in the East Sea. As for the treasure that Lu Ping obtained from the Crystal Palace's cultivator that night, it was still a heavenly abode treasure. However, this heavenly abode treasure was somewhat different. It was a heavenly abode treasure that was installed on the treasured ship as the main cabin. No wonder Xiao Baiyu said that Jinling might need it now. However, what Xiao Baiyu didn't know was that Jinling was currently using a heavenly abode treasure that had been modified by the crafting genius of Fei Ling sect, Jiao Yuqiang, as the main cabin of the treasured ship. Although this heavenly abode treasure could be used as the main cabin of the treasured ship, Jinling obviously wouldn't use it. However, it wasn't a bad thing to have another heavenly abode treasure in his hands. The matter on Qianyuan Island wasn't over yet. It was a huge island with a radius of thousands of miles. After thousands of years of operation, who knew how many secrets of the Northern Alliance were hidden within? Even if the major forces of the human and demon races dug 3 feet deep, it would still be impossible to clean up everything on Qianyuan Island in one night. However, these matters were no longer something that Jinling could participate in. In particular, the deaths of 6 mid-Dharma adepts from the Crystal Palace the previous night had shaken the entire major forces of the human and demon races. Although the major forces of the human and demon races had launched an intense battle on Qianyuan Island since last night, and it seemed like the battle was in full swing, there weren't many who were willing to kill each other. After all, each had their own concerns. However, when the various sects and tribes of the human and demon races learned that the sky-splitting sword saint, Xiao Baiyu, had suddenly appeared on Qianyuan Island, the entire Qianyuan Island fell silent. The matter of the Crystal Palace losing 6 mid-Dharma adepts in a row was ultimately left unsettled. In the East Sea, Skyrend and the Northern Alliance were considered traditional allies. However, when the Northern Alliance collapsed, everyone thought that Skyrend alone would be unable to do anything under the suppression of the Crystal Palace. The sudden appearance of Xiao Baiyu on Qianyuan Island completely reversed this trend. Subsequently, Yuan Yu, Laozu of the Crystal Palace, was at loggerheads with Xiao Baiyu over a treasure cave. In the end, this great adept, who had once risked his life to charge into Mara's army and was unable to do much under the siege of Mara's army, did not last more than 10 rounds under Xiao Baiyu's sword. Together with the second-level spirit treasure in his hand, he was cut in half by Xiao Baiyu's sword. A few days later, the news of sky-splitting sword master Xiao Baiyu's return to Skyren shook the entire overseas cultivation world. There were very few people in the cultivation world who could reverse the whole situation with their own strength, and Xiao Baiyu was undoubtedly one of these few people. 3 days later, the pure young adept of the Crystal Palace, Yuan Yen, Laozu, entered Qianyuan Island. Then, the pure young adept of the Green Sea Snakes, the former patriarch, Chu Fanyan, Laozu, arrived on Qianyuan Island. On the second day, there were 2 earth-shattering noises in the sky above Qianyuan Island. The surrounding seawater rose to a height of dozens of feet and poured into Qianyuan Island. Half a month later, the major forces of the human and demon clans began to withdraw from Qianyuan Island. The ones who benefited the most were not only the Crystal Palace and the Green Sea Snakes, but also Skyrend. A month later, the Kun clan withdrew from Silver Sword Island. The head elder of the Kun clan sent a messenger to apologize to Skyrend, claiming that he was willing to compensate Skyrend for the losses the Kun clan had suffered during their occupation of Silver Sword Island. 3 months later, Skyrend announced that the pure young adept, Laozu, Xiao Baiyu, had passed the third Thunder Calamity and officially returned to Skyrend as one of the 3 sword-holding elders of Skyrend. 3 years later, after a long period of communication with Skyrend, the Jade Sword, Golden Sword, and Silver Sword Islands were finally gathered together to form a new giant island, Sky-Splitting Island. Skyrend finally ended its history of not having a giant island as its foundation as a large sect. Just as the Sky-Splitting Island was finally formed and Skyrend announced that it would be the foundation of the Sky-Splitting Auction, the leader of Skyrend, Zhang Qitian Laozu, passed the second Thunder Calamity and successfully advanced to the late Dharma stage. He became the 4th great sorcerer of Skyrend. Zhang Qitian then announced that he would abdicate, and Skyrend's second-generation mid-Dharma adept, Xiao Baiyu's senior, Murong Sanjian, would take over as the leader. The situation in the East Sea was changing, but the training world in the North Sea seemed somewhat peaceful. Although the disaster of Mara was still raging, it was still somewhat under control. In the end, Tiankong Laozu still chose to condense a Dharma soul. After he passed away, his body was placed in the Jinling Grotto. All the Dharma adepts of Jinling gathered in the Jinling Grotto to send Tiankong Laozu off. The second disaster spirit treasure that he used was inherited by Guitianshan, but Guitianshan Laozu refused to inherit the Dharma soul that Tiankong Laozu had condensed. Guitianshan Laozu felt that with his own potential, even if he inherited the Dharma soul, he would at most reach the mid-Dharma stage. It would be a waste of Tiankong Laozu's efforts, and it would be better to leave it for the best of the younger generation of Jinling adepts to inherit so that they could use it to break through to the great sorcerer stage in the future. This would be to comfort Tiankong Laozu's spirit in heaven. Tiankong Laozu's death caused everyone in Jinling to be in a state of extreme progress. After the hard work of several generations of Jinling adepts, the 3rd generation of Jinling was finally on the verge of a full-blown breakthrough. After Zhenin Xiantian had condensed an 8th-grade golden core, he was now in closed-door training, waiting for an opportunity to break through to the peak of the core forging stage and condense his Dharma power. Although Xian Chu was still in the East Sea, he was already at the peak of the core forging stage. He was also the only 9th-grade golden core adept in the 3rd generation of Jinling besides Lu Ping. Lu Xianyuan, Li Xuanru, Jinren Xianhui, Qi Xiankai, Zhu Xianming, and the others were already smelting the 3rd type of spirit treasure. Xian Yong, Xian Feng, Xian Xian, Xian Shang, and the others were already at the 9th grade of the core forging stage. The other 3rd generation adepts were Shi Xianling, Chen Lian, Xian Lei, Xian Xiang, Xian Bei, Xianzhu, and Xiansu. The whole of Zhenling was now like a volcano that had accumulated enough energy. It was only waiting for the right opportunity to erupt. Then, the whole sect would surely soar into the sky. Rumble! A huge jade bottle fell from the sky and sank into a lake in front of Tianlu Laozu's secret chamber at the back of Tianling Mountain. At this time, Tianlu Laozu, Lu Ping, and an old man were standing at the entrance of the Heaven's Grotto Heaven, observing the situation inside. With this Heaven's Grotto Heaven of inheritance, the old man's wish in this life has been fulfilled. After I die, I will have a place to go. In the future, when I meet the ancestors of Zhenling Elixir Pavilion, the old man will have something to say. In recent years, Tianlu Laozu had also begun to show signs of old age. After Tiancong Laozu passed away, the whole of Zhenling was greatly excited, but it was a huge blow to the first generation of adepts in Zhenling. Tianjiang Laozu had also reached the end of his life. Now, he was like a madman, spending all his energy on repairing the treasured ship. He was racing against time to see Zhenling's treasured ship set sail before he passed away. In addition, Tianlu Laozu, who was originally the youngest among them, was only at the early Dharma stage. Now, he only had a little more than 100 years left in his life. Lu Ping did not know how to persuade him, so he could only ask another old man beside him. Senior Hongye, are you really not going to join our sect? That old man was the chief alchemist of the Northern Alliance, Hongye Laozu. After being rescued by Lu Ping, Hongye Laozu did not agree to join Zhenling. But because of the Northern Alliance's disappearance, he was disheartened and was willing to leave the world of practice. But because of Lu Ping's saving grace, he agreed to look after the heaven's heritage in the flying red cloud grotto heaven. After all, most of the people buried there were the tombs of the alchemists of the Northern Alliance. Chapter 1097. The sun was high in the sky, and the sky was clear. On the endless blue waves, there was only a semi-elliptical island. It was shaded by trees, birds were singing, and flowers were fragrant. From a distance, it was full of spiritual energy. On the edge of the island, there was a shallow and short beach. From time to time, amphibious creatures in the sea landed on the beach. There were also long-legged, sharp-beaked birds that fell from the sky and proudly walked on the beach. At the same time, they looked at the creatures coming and going from the sea and the coast. From time to time, they pecked at the food they valued and ate it. At this moment, a bulge suddenly appeared on the beach, and a few fist-sized sea turtles that seemed to have just hatched from eggs buried under the sand. After drilling out of the sand, they stretched out their heads to look around, and then crawled towards the sea. The eyes of the few seabirds lit up as if they suddenly found some delicious food. They ran quickly with their long legs, and in a moment they caught up with the few small turtles. Then, their long sharp beaks stretched out and retracted, and they pecked a small turtle. One of the seabirds was extremely smart. After pecking a small turtle, it was not in a hurry to enjoy the delicacy. Instead, it continued to peck at the second small turtle. After a few times, the seabird pecked the small turtles that crawled in front one by one, waiting to enjoy a rare feast. At this time, the seabird seemed to find something. Its long neck twisted back, only to find that there was another small turtle crawling out of the sand where the previous few small turtles crawled out of. This small turtle seemed to hatch a little later than the previous few, and it was a little bigger, almost the size of a palm. Compared with the previous few small turtles, this small turtle seemed to be a lot less vigilant, and it crawled toward the sea wobbly. The seabird saw that the turtle in front of it was bigger than the previous ones, so it must be fatter. It took a few steps toward the little turtle, but it suddenly stopped. It seemed that the few little turtles it had pecked were enough for it to fill its stomach. Even if it pecked this one, it wouldn't be able to eat it, so it retreated and walked to a little turtle that was pecked over. It stuck its sharp long beak into the turtle shell and pecked at the turtle meat inside. The small turtle was still wobbling and crawling past the seabird unhurriedly, as if it didn't notice the existence of a natural enemy next to it. It didn't know that it almost died in the stomach of the seabird until a wave came. The small turtle took advantage of the receding wave and disappeared into the sea. Just as the seabird was leisurely enjoying the turtle meat, another wave came. A giant turtle with a body of 5 feet rushed to the beach, then crawled toward the small island. Then, the turtle seemed to have found something. Its deep head turned to this side, and it suddenly saw the seabird pecking the delicious food from the turtle's shell. Roar! The giant turtle suddenly opened its mouth and let out a low roar. It seemed to be extremely angry at the seabird pecking its own kind. The seabird also felt that this big turtle seemed to be extremely difficult to deal with. It immediately jumped to the side and shook its wings slightly, flying toward the sky. The enormous tortoise lifted its head slightly. It saw the seabird that was circling in midair but was unwilling to leave. However, it appeared a little helpless. Finally, it shrank its head and slowly walked toward the deeper regions of the small island. Seeing that the giant turtle was about to walk into the woods of the small island, the seabird suddenly lowered its circling, waiting for the giant turtle to leave before landing on the beach to enjoy its unfinished meal. However, at this moment, the top of the seabird's head suddenly darkened. Before the seabird could raise its head to see what was happening, a gust of wind had already hit it. The seabird only had time to scream before it was swept away by this wild wave. When it stabilized its body, it saw a beautiful giant bird with a wingspan of 3 feet swooping down from the sky with a wild wave. Its target was the giant turtle that was about to walk into the woods. When the giant turtle heard the sound and looked up, it was already too late. A blue light flashed, and the giant turtle only had time to roar before it disappeared. The giant bird soared into the sky, constantly circling above the small island. The blue feathers behind it flickered in the sky, leaving behind a light star as it flew. The giant bird circled above the small island for about a quarter of an hour. Its clear and long cry shook the surface of the sea for several miles, as if it was calling for something. However, in the end, it was to no avail. The giant bird could only turn around and fly southwest. After the dazzling and beautiful giant bird flew away, the seabird also circled in the air for a while, as if it had not yet recovered from the shock brought by the giant bird. After a while, it seemed to remember that there was still a delicious meal on the beach that had not been finished, so it folded its wings and slowly landed on the beach. Just as the seabird's feet landed on the beach, the entire ground seemed to shake. The seabird was shocked. Could it be an earthquake? With a flap of its wings, its body that had just landed rose into the air again. Looking down from above, it could see that the entire island was indeed shaking slightly, and it was even moving slowly. At this moment, another clear and long cry sounded. The seabird was startled, thinking that the giant bird had turned around again. However, it quickly realized that the direction seemed to be wrong. When it turned around, it saw that there was indeed a giant bird slowly flying in the sky from the northeast. However, although this giant bird was approaching, it was also circling around something from time to time, as if it was playing with something. Although its green feathers were not as dazzling as the giant bird's, and its body was also smaller than the giant bird's, it still appeared to be unusually spirited. When the seabird looked again, it really saw that there seemed to be something below the giant bird coming here. When it got closer, it turned out to be a giant tortoise of 1 meter in size, and on the back of the giant tortoise, there seemed to be a person sitting on it, teasing the giant bird in the sky. However, this was not what made the seabird feel strange. Above the head of the man and the bird, a thick dark cloud floated in the sky, coincidentally covering the scorching sun above their heads. Moreover, this dark cloud seemed to have intelligence, moving in the direction of the giant tortoise floating on the sea. Although it was constantly changing shape, it always covered the sun in the sky above the giant tortoise's head. The sun in the South Sea is really strong. Lu Ping looked at the sun covered by the dark cloud, then looked at the seabird in the distant sky, and said with a smile, "It's quite a smart bird. Well, I'll give you some luck today. Let's see if you can walk your own path in the future." After that, Lu Ping took out a pill from his sleeve and threw it at the seabird. The pill immediately flew toward the seabird and floated in front of it. Although the seabird was a little afraid of the person sitting on the back of the giant tortoise, seeing the pill floating in front of it, it seemed to know that it would be of great benefit to it. It looked at Lu Ping. The seabird gave a clear cry, nodded, and pecked, swallowing the pill into its abdomen. Then the seabird felt a heat in its abdomen, and its wings suddenly became soft. With a scream, its whole body fell from the sky into the forest of the island in front of it. As they got closer and closer to the island, Lu Ping immediately put away his interest, and Lu Chiner in the sky no longer played around, but quietly hovered above Lu Ping's head. Lu Ping slowly stood up from Lu Dagui's back, but did not directly go ashore. Instead, he slowly swam around the island. Looking at the island in front of him, Lu Ping was amazed and said, "It really is the sky hegemonic divine turtle clan, worthy of being the direct descendant of Taoist Gui. It is huge, has a long lifespan, and floats on the sea for a long time, not moving for dozens of years. It is often regarded as an island reef. It has a gentle temperament, and does not like to transform into a human form, only likes to sleep on the sea. I didn't expect to meet one as soon as I arrived in the South Sea." Lu Ping patted Lu Dagui under his feet and said, "Dagui, although you are from the Xian Turtle clan, aren't you also a distant relative of the Sky Hegemonic Divine Turtle clan? If you advance to the Dharma phase in the future, will you also have such a huge body?" Without waiting for Lu Dagui to answer, a sneering voice sounded in Lu Ping's ear. "This little guy is a distant relative of my Bagui clan. Now he is already in the middle stage of the core forging stage, but his body is only 10 feet in diameter." Lu Ping was surprised. Looking at the island not far away, he said, "You are awake? It is said that your Bagui clan likes to sleep in the South Sea, rarely willing to wake up and take the initiative to communicate with people. I didn't expect my luck to be so good that I met a Bagui as soon as I arrived in the South Sea, and a Bagui that is always awake." The island in front of Lu Ping was still motionless, and the previous voice had passed into Lu Ping's ears. "You think I want to? Recently, a peacock came to make noise every 2 or 3 days, making me unable to sleep even if I wanted to. If it was in normal times, even if I occasionally wake up, I would be too lazy to talk to people." Lu Ping's eyes flashed, and he said, "Oh, then why don't you drive it away, and instead let it make noise in your ears?" After a while, the voice sounded in Lu Ping's ears again. "I am too lazy to move." This answer made Lu Ping not know whether to laugh or cry, but when he thought of the other party's identity as a member of the Bagui clan, it seemed to be a little more reasonable. Lu Ping seemed to have guessed the reason why this Bagui came to find him, and he smiled. "But what do you need me to do?" The voice chuckled and said, "The feeling you give me is extremely powerful. If you can drive away that noisy peacock, I will let your mount merge with a trace of my clan's bloodline and become a true distant relative of the Tyrant Turtle clan. What do you think?" Lu Ping shook his head and said, "You are really wishful thinking. That peacock seems to be from the endless mountain range, and it is not easy to provoke it. Forgive me for not being able to comply." Chapter 1098. Of course, Lu Ping wouldn't agree to the Sky Hegemonic Divine Turtle's request so easily. Instead, he was curious about why the peacock was so persistent in finding him but didn't resort to any drastic measures. The voice said helplessly, "It's all for the 5 Elements tortoise." 5 Elements tortoise? Oh, you don't know about the 5 Elements tortoise? It seems you are not a cultivator from the South Sea. "Yes, I am from the North Sea." "The North Sea?" The voice seemed to be recalling something. After a moment it said, "I heard that place is very cold. It is not a good place to sleep." Another long cry was heard. Lu Ping could actually hear a trace of anger in this cry. On the horizon, a blue peacock arrived in a flash. Its blue feathers streaked across the sky, leaving a long ripple of spirit chi. It was said that the peacock race had an innate bloodline ability that could easily disturb the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, reducing the power of various cultivators' spells and magic. It could even seal a cultivator's spiritual chi from a distance. It must be because of this feather. The peacock rushed down from the sky towards Lu Ping. Without saying a word, a blue light flashed behind it. A strange wave of spiritual qi spread out, and in an instant, the spiritual qi in Lu Ping's body was activated. If this was an ordinary cultivator, even if it did not seal the cultivator's spiritual qi, it would at least cause the cultivator's spiritual qi to flow intermittently. In the end, the cultivator's strength would be greatly weakened. But how could Lu Ping be compared to an ordinary cultivator? The moment the spiritual qi in his body was affected, the Dharma form of the dragon in his core space circled and roared. A pure source of spiritual qi flowed into his blood vessels, suppressing the spiritual qi in his body. At the same time, he activated the North Sea wave listening technique, and the spiritual qi within 3 feet of him was immediately smoothed out. Lu Ping did not expect the peacock to be so unreasonable. At the same time, he realized that he had fallen into the turtle's trap. The turtle had no intention of persuading Lu Ping to help it drive away the peacock. Instead, the peacock had come to cause trouble for Lu Ping. When the peacock saw that the person in front of it was still as calm as the clouds and wind, without the slightest trace of fear from the sealing of the true essence in his body, how could it not know that its innate divine ability was useless against the person in front of it? It immediately let out an angry cry, and the feathers on its back flashed with blue light again, causing the surrounding spiritual energy in the air to rapidly change again. According to Lu Ping's divine sense, this time, the peacock did not attempt to seal the spiritual qi in his body. Instead, it guided the spiritual qi around Lu Ping away from Lu Ping, causing a vacuum of spiritual qi to appear around Lu Ping. Without the support of spiritual qi, the power of Lu Ping's magic techniques would be affected. Additionally, during a battle, it would also affect the recovery rate of the spiritual qi within a cultivator's body. However, the effects were subtle. In the short term, the effects were negligible. Additionally, Lu Ping could retreat at any time to avoid the effects of the magic techniques. Naturally, Lu Ping would not show any fear. He smiled at the peacock in the sky and a vortex appeared in his hand. In the beginning, the vortex was very small. Moments later, however, it grew bigger and bigger. In the end, it caused the seawater beneath Lu Ping's feet to form a vortex as well. However, the vortex did not spin downwards. Instead, it spun upwards, forming a spiral-shaped tower of water with a thin top and a thick bottom. The surrounding spiritual qi that the peacock's innate ability had isolated suddenly broke through its shackles and began gathering towards the vortex in Lu Ping's hand. At the same time, the spiritual energy within the seawater was also absorbed, gathering towards Lu Ping's hand. Instantly, the peacock's spirit shackling magic technique collapsed. "Who are you?" Seeing how easily Lu Ping had broken its innate ability, even though it was just a test, the peacock could tell that this human before it was not someone to be trifled with. If there was no need, the peacock would not fight to the death with Lu Ping. So, it flapped its wings and an aqua blue light burst out. A beautiful woman in luxurious clothes walked out from the light. She stared at Lu Ping and asked, "Who are you?" Lu Ping smiled and dispelled the magic technique in his hand. The spiral-shaped tower of water instantly fell from the sky and smashed into the surface of the sea, creating a huge wave that spread out in all directions. However, when the wave reached the small island, it silently subsided. Lu Ping glanced at the small island and said, "I'm just a passerby, but you attacked me the moment you came up. Shouldn't you give me an explanation?" The peacock girl snorted coldly and said, "I took a fancy to this big fellow first. If you want to enter the 5 Elements Tortoise Vault, you can go find the other tyrant tortoises. I spent a great deal of effort to get him to cooperate, yet you want to cut me off without saying a word? How could it be so easy?" When Lu Ping heard this, he naturally knew that the woman had misunderstood. However, it was obviously useless to explain now. The peacock woman might not believe him. However, this was the second time Lu Ping had heard of the 5 Elements Tortoise Vault. Naturally, he was curious, so he asked, "May I ask you, what is the 5 Elements Tortoise Vault?" The peacock woman looked at Lu Ping strangely and said, "You don't know? How is that possible? Aren't you here for the 5 Elements Tortoise Vault?" Lu Ping smiled bitterly and spread his hands. I was going to find out soon, but I was interrupted by you. Just now, Lu Ping was going to ask Tyrant Tortoise, but the peacock woman attacked him without giving him a chance to explain after she arrived. As a result, the conversation between Lu Ping and Tyrant Tortoise was interrupted. The peacock woman rolled her eyes and giggled. It's not like I can't tell you, but you'll have to do me a favor. You'll have to convince this lazy tortoise to go to the 5 Elements Tortoise Vault with us. At the same time, considering that you've helped me, I'll be magnanimous and allow you to take a look at the ruins left behind by Taoist Gui. What do you think? The ruins left behind by Taoist Gui? Lu Ping's face was filled with shock as he said, How can this be? The peacock woman rolled her eyes at Lu Ping and looked disdainful. You're not from the North Sea, right? Why are you so ill-informed? Before Lu Ping could be rendered speechless by her words, a burst of laughter was heard. It was none other than Tyrant Tortoise, who was talking to Lu Ping just now. The peacock woman suddenly turned around and waved a feather fan in her hand, causing a blue light to enter the seawater. Several sea turtles were instantly brought up from the water by the light, and they disappeared into the void. It only took a brief moment for Lu Ping to notice that most of the sea turtles were in the blood refining or blood condensation stages. Moreover, they more or less carried a trace of Tyrant Tortoise's bloodline aura. In other words, their endowments were much better than the black turtle beneath his feet. The sea was still calm, with only the sound of waves and the chirping of seabirds in the distance. The peacock woman was furious. She waved the feather fan in her hand and a huge wave surged from the sea, crashing towards the island. However, before the huge wave could reach the island, it gradually slowed down and calmed down. By the time it reached the beach, it was equivalent to an ordinary wave. Are you going to help or not? Suddenly, Peacock Lady turned around and shouted at Lu Ping. The 5 Elemental Turtle Vault contains the rich 5 elemental essences left behind by Taoist Gui in the past. For cultivators who cultivate too fast, causing their foundation to be unstable and impure, this is a rare opportunity to stabilize their foundation and strengthen their foundation. The peacock woman paused, as if she felt that her words did not carry enough weight, so she continued. I see that you have only cultivated for less than 200 years, but you are already at the early Dharma stage. Even I, a member of the peacock royalty, am only at this level. I think that there are hidden dangers of an unstable foundation. If you enter the 5 Elements Tortoise Vault and absorb the purest essence of the 5 elements to strengthen your cultivation, you will definitely be able to go further in the future. Lu Ping's heart was thumping wildly, but he tried to keep a calm face and said, Is there really the essence of the 5 elements inside? As if feeling that he had not said it carefully enough, Lu Ping added, The gathering of the 5 elements? The peacock woman seemed to feel that Lu Ping's question was extremely distrustful of her. She snorted coldly and said, Of course, I am the princess of the peacock royalty. Why would I lie to you? Then why must you call on this Ba Gui Xiang Shiping? The peacock woman looked at Lu Ping in surprise and said, It seems that you really don't know. The 5 Elements Tortoise Vault is hidden in the South Sea. Only the Ba Gui clan, as the direct descendants of Taoist Gui, can find it. Moreover, the land of the 5 elements is not something that can be entered just by finding it. Every time the 5 Elements Tortoise Vault appears in the South Sea, it must be the time when Mara's calamity wreaks havoc. The periphery of the 5 Elements Tortoise Vault will be surrounded by a large number of Mara. At that time, it will be a dangerous battle. The direct descendants of the Ba Gui clan have inherited the nature of Taoist Gui. Although they are lazy, their defense is unparalleled. When the time comes, with the help of a Ba Gui, it will naturally be twice the result with half the effort. Lu Ping said thoughtfully. Mara surrounded the 5 Elements Tortoise Vault. Could it be that they also want to advance by absorbing the essence of the 5 elements? The peacock woman said, Of course, but there seems to be some unknown power in the 5 Elements Tortoise Vault. Although Mara can get close to the 5 Elements Tortoise Vault, he can't enter it. He can only absorb the thin essence of the 5 elements from the periphery. Lu Ping nodded and smiled at the island in the distance. I'm sorry, Brother Xiang, I seem to have been convinced by this peacock princess. Chapter 1099. Looking from afar, there was only an island that was about 1 kilometer in circumference standing on the surface of the boundless sea. However, when one looked closer, they found that the island was actually moving on the surface of the sea. However, the movement of such a colossal object on the surface did not cause any ripples in the water around it. The seabirds living in the forest on the island had already noticed something was wrong the moment the island began to move on the sea. They spread their wings and flew away. Now there was only one seabird hovering over the forest. This seabird was the one that had fallen unconscious in the forest after swallowing one of Lu Ping's elixirs. When it woke up, all the feathers on its body had fallen off. Instead, it had been replaced by a shiny new set of clothes. This seabird had gained sentience, and knew that the young man below was the one who had changed it. Although the island now brought it an oppressive and fearful aura, it still persisted in hovering in the sky and was unwilling to leave. At the front of the island, Peacock Girl Yang Rijuan and Lu Ping were standing on a huge reef. Looking at the seabird hovering in the sky, Yang Rijuan said sarcastically, "It's just an ordinary seabird. Even if it has some intelligence, how great can it achieve in the future? Your awakening elixir has opened its path of cultivation, and how far can it go? Without the protection of its race, I'm afraid it will become a meal for other monster race cultivators before it can achieve anything. If it is so weak, it will at least be safe for the rest of its life." Lu Ping smiled and did not reply. Instead, he stretched out his hand and waved. After a few mournful cries in the sky, the seabird turned around and flew into the distant sea. "Fellow cultivator Yang, tell me about the 5 elements tortoise treasure. Why did Taoist Gui leave behind such a treasure?" Yang Rijuan giggled and said, "I said you were from the North Sea, but I didn't expect you to be right. What's surprising is that you're actually the famous North Sea water sword fairy, Lu Tianping. This is really unexpected." Although Lu Ping didn't think that his swordsmanship was the best in the world, and he wasn't a pure swordsman, he was still quite conceited. However, after witnessing the sword sage Xiao Baiyu's swordsmanship in Dahai 3 years ago, Lu Ping didn't dare to call himself a sword sage anymore. Lu Ping had no choice but to ask towards the sea below the reef. "Fellow Taoist Xiang, can you tell me more about the 5 elements hidden tortoise?" "Humph." A muffled groan came from the bottom of the sea. Xiang Shiping said impatiently, "I'm too lazy to talk." Xiang Shiping was still indignant about Lu Ping's sudden betrayal. If the two of them hadn't joined hands to force him, especially that cultivator from the North Sea, who actually dared to compete with him in water-controlling magic, he would have been a joke. Xiang Shiping didn't know that in the current cultivation world, except for the water snake clan of the Green Sea Snakes, there was no other clan that dared to compete with the Ba Gui clan in water-controlling magic. However, things in the world were always so unimaginable. At this moment, the human cultivator in front of his tortoiseshell was almost thrown off the surface of the sea by the seawater beneath him. This really shocked him, and with the peacock glaring at him from time to time, Xiang Shiping had no choice but to beg for mercy. However, he was still angry and fearful of Lu Ping's strength, so he had no choice but to vent his anger through words. Lu Ping almost overturned the Ba Gui divine turtle Xiang Shiping with his world-changing magic. Not only was this huge turtle frightened, but even the peacock princess Yang Rijuan was stunned. Yang Rijuan had come to invite Xiang Shiping to enter several times, but every time, he refused. In desperation, Yang Rijuan had to use force, but the two of them had similar magical powers. Xiang Shiping had made up his mind to be a coward, so she couldn't do anything. In the end, she could only abduct all the cultivators of the Ba Gui clan who were related to Xiang Shiping to force him to submit, but Xiang Shiping was still indifferent. Unexpectedly, as soon as Lu Ping started, he almost overturned Xiang Shiping from the sea. At that time, the scene could really be described as overwhelming. Xiang Shiping, a direct descendant of the Ba Gui clan, actually lost to a human cultivator in the field of water control. Ha ha! Seeing that Lu Ping was defeated, Yang Rijuan immediately laughed and said, Okay, I'll tell you. The Five Elements Tortoise treasury was actually not a treasure left by Taoist Gui. To be exact, it should be the location of one of Taoist Gui's Taoist rites, which was also where Taoist Gui cultivated in the past. Back then, Taoist Gui and Jiao Daoren worked together to open up the overseas cultivation world. Taoist Gui was lazy and his strength was far inferior to Jiao Daoren, so he could only open up the South Sea, which was much smaller than the East Sea but much more prosperous than the North Sea. After Jiao Daoren mistakenly took a poisonous pill and was seriously injured, Taoist Gui felt that his cultivation was not strong enough, so he borrowed a treasure from Ping Daoren with the intention of improving his cultivation. When Taoist Gui came out of his closed-door cultivation, the treasure finally disappeared. However, perhaps because of this treasure, or perhaps because Taoist Gui's cultivation had greatly improved, this Taoist rites had become a place that contained the essence of the five elements. Because of Taoist Gui's supernatural power, this Taoist rites had always been traveling between the South Sea and the Void, and every time they appeared in the South Sea, the location was different. Except for the Sky Hegemonic Divine Turtle Clan, the direct descendants of Taoist Gui, who could find the Taoist rites through their bloodline, perhaps only the Mara clan, who were born to pursue the essence of the Taoist rites, could find them. Lu Ping unconsciously touched the house of gold hanging in front of his chest. On the lonely mountain in the sky, the Samling Five Elements leaf had now grown its seventh leaf after Lu Ping collected 5 kinds of low-grade heaven-step spiritual objects, and with the help of the Wood Luan golden core of the late-stage core forging stage. Since then, the growth of the Samling Five Elements leaf had completely stagnated. It was not that this spiritual object could no longer be produced, but that the 5 kinds of mid-grade heaven-step spiritual objects required made Lu Ping completely worried. The collection of these 5 kinds of low-grade heaven-step spiritual objects had already taken Lu Ping a lot of effort. If he found another mid-grade heaven-step spiritual object to accelerate the growth of the Samling Five Elements leaf, not to mention whether it would be easy to find, even if he found it, was the Samling Five Elements leaf really worth such a big investment from Lu Ping? Lu Ping was now in a dilemma. Should he continue to accelerate the growth of the Samling Five Elements leaf? The cost of doing so would be too high. If he stopped now, his previous investment seemed to be in vain. However, at this time, Lu Ping heard the news of the Five Elements tortoise. There was the existence of the origin essence of the 5 elements there. If he could replace the role of the 5 elements spiritual objects in accelerating the growth of the Samling Five Elements leaf, wouldn't it be possible to accelerate the ripening of the Samling Five Elements leaf? After refining the Xianyuan heavy water, Lu Ping was confident that his foundation was extremely solid. Therefore, entering the 5 elements tortoise to condense the real essence and consolidate his cultivation was secondary. The purpose of Lu Ping's trip was to collect the origin essence of the 5 elements, and accelerate the growth of the Samling Five Elements leaf. At this time, he heard Yang Rijuan suddenly say, Hey, old Xiang, go west first, go west first. Xiang Shiping's muffled voice came from the bottom of the sea again, and said, Why go west? That is not the direction to the 5 elements tortoise. Yang Rijuan said, I have a few sisters with me. Everyone go out and find the Sky Hegemonic Divine Tortoise to lead the way. The better, we will meet at a coral island in the west. Xiang Shiping's indignant voice suddenly came, and said, To go to the 5 elements tortoise, one guide is enough. If your sisters find other people of the same clan, can you let me go? I am really tired now. Yang Rijuan said proudly. It was not easy to get you to come, and you want to go back to sleep? Dream on. Besides, it is not easy to rush into the 5 elements tortoise after finding it. Only when everyone is together will we be strong enough. Think about it, if a few Sky Hegemonic Divine Tortoises attack together, wouldn't it be like a tsunami? Xiang Shiping said angrily. Is that an invitation? If it was not for me, I am afraid I would have been turned upside down by you. Besides, how many of my clansmen can your sisters ask for help? Tsunami call? Have you ever seen a real tsunami call? Yang Rijuan's eyes lit up and said, Is there a scene more shocking than a few sky-hegemonic divine tortoises gathering together? Tell me, tell me. At this time, Xiang Shiping did not seem to care, and just said casually, It was 500 years ago, when a rather powerful mid-sized clan in the South China Sea offended the Ba Gui clan in order to attack the larger clans. At that time, there were about 30 to 40 Dharma adepts from the Ba Gui clan, but I can't remember clearly. In addition, there were hundreds of juniors from the Ba Gui clan who were at the core forging stage, and I was among them. The 30 to 40 seniors did not use any spells, but just attacked the island at the same time. There were only 3 waves, and the large island that the clan was on was completely flattened, and no one from the clan could escape. After that, the island was completely submerged in the sea by the seniors of the clan. Hearing this, Yang Rujuan gasped in surprise and asked hurriedly, Old Xiang, you're only at the mid-Dharma stage now, and you already have a body that's as big as a mile. If you're a mid or late Dharma adept from the Ba Gui clan, how big would your body be? Xiang Shiping said, The size of the Ba Gui clan is directly proportional to the strength of the clan. The bigger the body, the stronger the strength. Normally, before the Dharma stage, one's body is only less than 1,000 feet. Once one advances to the Dharma stage, one's body will definitely grow to more than 1,000 feet and less than 1 mile. If one can survive the first lightning tribulation, then one's body will expand to less than 3 miles. For late Dharma adepts, the body will at least be 3 to 5 miles. For late Dharma adepts and above, it's hard to say. I only heard that there was once a clan that occupied an island, and after 1,000 years, it finally developed into a rather famous small clan, with a Dharma adept in charge. Who would have thought that the island that they were on would suddenly shake and sink into the sea, and only that Dharma adept managed to escape. Only then did they realize that the island that they had been relying on as a foundation for the past 1,000 years was actually on the back of a senior from the Ba Gui clan, and they did not notice it at all. That day, that senior woke up from his deep sleep and wanted to go down to the bottom of the sea to find food, so the clan suffered. Later, according to the adepts of the clan, that senior was actually a pure Yang Laozu, but he slept for 1,000 years, and did not know that someone had already established a clan on his back. Chapter 1100. Lu Ping coughed twice and asked Yang Rujuan, How many of your sisters are there? Why haven't I heard you mention them before? Yang Rujuan smiled mysteriously and said, You'll know when you get there. Seeing her like this, Lu Ping did not ask any more questions. Instead, he turned to Xiang Shiping and asked, Brother Xiang, do you know where the Nether Space Sea is? The Nether Space Sea? Xiang Shiping paused, as if thinking about something. After a while he said, You're going there for the Nether Space sect, right? Lu Ping heard that Xiang Shiping had hit the nail on the head, so he asked, Why does Brother Xiang say so? Are there many people who go to the Nether Space Sea? Xiang Shiping said, Not many people go to the Nether Space Sea, but there is an endless stream of people who go there. Moreover, those who go there are all very proficient in formations. The Nether Space sect used to be unrivaled in the world in terms of formations. Later on, the various large sects in the overseas cultivation world joined forces to destroy the sect. However, the entire formation set up by the Nether Space sect was completely out of control, turning the place into a sea of restrictive spells. Even many powerful cultivators cannot enter it, but it has become the favorite place of many formation masters. At this time, Yang Rujuan interrupted. I heard that Brother Lu is an extremely brilliant alchemy grandmaster. Could it be that you also have a deep understanding of formations? Then she asked in surprise, Is Brother Lu coming to the South Sea this time for the Nether Space Sea? Lu Ping was shocked, but his expression did not change as he shook his head. In the East Sea, I saw the achievements of the Nether Space sect in terms of formations. For a time, I was shocked. This time, I naturally wanted to go to the nether space sea to have a look. The three of them chatted and laughed along the way. In the blink of an eye, they had already arrived at a coral sea. In the distant sky, a few crisp and long cries could be heard. 3 huge peacocks were soaring in the sky. When they saw such a huge island floating over from the sea, they turned and flew over. Yang Rujuin waved at the 3 peacocks excitedly, then flew into the air and transformed into her original form. A water-blue peacock with a wingspan of 3 meters flew towards the other 3 peacocks. Lu Ping watched as the 4 peacocks circled around each other in the air, chirping and communicating with each other. Then, the 4 peacocks landed on Xiang Shiping's back and transformed into 4 women. 3 of the 4 women wore the same style of clothing as Yang Rujuin, and their faces were similar as well. The only difference was that the color of their clothing was based on the feathers on their bodies. Yang Rujuin pointed to a woman dressed in dark green clothes on the left and said, "This is my second sister, Yang Wanjun." Yang Wanjun was a beautiful woman of few words. When Lu Ping cupped his hands in greeting, she only smiled and did not speak. Then, he heard Yang Rujuin point to the 2 women on the right who were dressed in fiery red and light yellow clothes and said, "This is my 4th sister, Yang Lijun, and 5th sister, Yang Shijun." Yang Lijun had a lively temperament. She looked at Lu Ping and giggled. Yang Shijun was the youngest and seemed to have little interaction with others. From the beginning to the end, she did not look at Lu Ping. Just by greeting Lu Ping, she was already blushing. After Lu Ping also greeted the 2, Yang Rujuin pointed to Lu Ping and said, "This is the North Sea Water Sword Immortal, Lu Tianping, whom I told you about. This time, Brother Xiang, Brother Lu has also contributed greatly in being able to invite Brother Xiang. Therefore, we have invited Brother Lu to join us on this trip to the 5 Elements Tortoise Cave." As soon as Yang Rujuin's voice fell, a cold snort sounded from under the water. It was obvious that Xiang Shiping was still holding a grudge against Lu Ping for almost flipping him over. Although Yang Rujuin said that Lu Ping had contributed greatly, in fact, Xiang Shiping had no choice but to agree to go to the 5 Elements Tortoise Cave because he was completely defeated by Lu Ping. From the beginning to the end, Yang Rujuin could not do anything to Xiang Shiping. Even when Lu Ping made a move, she could only watch from the side. However, when she said this, it seemed that she was the main contributor to Xiang Shiping's invitation, and Lu Ping had become an assistant. When Lu Ping saw that she was staring at him while speaking, it was obvious that she was afraid that he would expose her. Lu Ping laughed involuntarily and did not care about this matter. The woman in fiery red clothes, Yang Lijun, cheered and said, "Third sister, you are so powerful. You have found such a big guy. Second sister, 5th sister, and I have been looking for tyrannical tortoises everywhere, but second sister has been looking for them for thousands of miles. Although I have found one, it has ignored me and I can't defeat it. 5th sister has found 3, but they are all tyrannical tortoises at the core forging stage. Their cultivation is too low, and their bodies are also small. They can help us break through the 5 Elements Tortoise Cave that is surrounded by Mara." Yang Rujuin smiled unnaturally and inadvertently glanced at Lu Ping, but she saw that Lu Ping was staring at a place far away from her. As if sensing something, Yang Rujuin turned around and looked behind her. She saw that a small black mountain had appeared out of nowhere in the boundless sea. The small mountain was getting closer and closer. It was clearly a giant sea turtle that was about the same size as Xiang Shiping. "It's eldest sister. Eldest sister is so powerful. She has also found a big guy. Wow, third sister, this big guy is almost the same as the old Xiang you found." Fourth sister Yang Lijun was obviously lively. From the time she met Lu Ping until now, her mouth had not stopped talking. The hill was getting closer and closer. Lu Ping could already faintly see a beautiful woman in golden clothes standing on the top of the hill. "Eldest sister, eldest sister!" Fourth sister Yang Lijun took the lead and flew towards the beautiful woman. Without waiting for the others to speak, she chattered and told the beautiful woman everything that had happened here. Next to her, Yang Rujuin introduced to Lu Ping, This is our eldest sister Yang Huijun. She is also the strongest among us 5 sisters. At this time, another tyrant turtle had also arrived. Xiang Shiping under Lu Ping's feet was the first to let out a loud roar from the sea. Immediately after, the tyrant turtle under the feet of the beautiful woman Yang Huijun also let out a loud roar. Obviously, the 2 giant turtles were communicating with each other. Brother Ping, have you also been invited by them? The head of the giant turtle under Yang Huijun's feet was also under the sea, and it was also greeting the giant turtle under Lu Ping's feet. What can I do? But it's good to go there. I haven't cultivated for 100 or 200 years. I can take this opportunity to go there and cultivate. Once I pass the first under tribulation, I can have a good rest for a while. The tyrant turtle under Yang Huijun's feet was called Xiang Jingyu. Hearing this, he smiled bitterly and said, That's the only way. It's just that it won't be easy to break through the 5 elements turtle's Mara line of defense. It has not fought for hundreds of years. I'm afraid there's no other way but to barge in. I just don't know how strong their subordinates are. What do you think of them? How confident are they in entering the 5 elements land? Xiang Shiping said. As long as they don't encounter the existence of Mara or above, it shouldn't be too big of a problem. Moreover, these 5 girls are the peacock royalty of the Endless Mountains. Moreover, they are the extremely rare 5 elements peacocks. If they join forces, their strength will be difficult to estimate. Xiang Jingyu nodded and said, The strength of the 5 elements peacocks is naturally unquestionable. I just don't know how strong that human boy is. Before Xiang Shiping could answer, Yang Huijun also said to Yang Rujuan and the others, It's great that Brother Lu can join us. However, the 5 elements land is extremely dangerous. Brother Lu should think carefully. If it's extremely dangerous, I'm afraid that even us sisters won't be able to help you. Lu Ping naturally understood the meaning of Yang Huijun's words. He was warning Lu Ping not to take risks if he was not strong enough. If it was a critical moment, the 5 sisters would not put themselves in danger for his sake. Yang Rujuan naturally understood the meaning of Yang Huijun's words. She cast an apologetic glance at Lu Ping and was about to defend Lu Ping when she heard Yang Lijun say excitedly, It's hard to say whether I'm strong or not. We'll know after fighting with me. Yang Rujuan's expression changed. She was naturally aware of Lu Ping's strength. 4th sister Yang Lijun's strength was only about the same as hers. How could she be a match for Lu Ping? But before she could open her mouth to stop her, Yang Lijun had already turned into a fireball and pounced towards Lu Ping. Yang Rujuan's eyes wandered, but in the end, she did not say anything to stop her. However, she heard Yang Lijun, who was fighting Lu Ping, cry out in alarm and retreat at a speed faster than before. At this time, Yang Lijun was completely drenched. Even if Yang Rujuan had long known about Lu Ping's strength, she would never have thought that Yang Lijun would suffer such a big loss in such a short period of time. The other 3 were even more shocked. Just when Yang Lijun turned into a wave of fire and rushed towards Lu Ping was also very unhappy with Yang Huijun's tactful words of contempt. Naturally, he also wanted to establish his power. Seeing Yang Lijun pouncing towards him, Lu Ping used his magic power to condense the surrounding water vapor, forming a huge palm that grabbed towards Yang Lijun. Yang Lijun secretly laughed at Lu Ping's carelessness. He wanted to stop my wave of fire with such a simple hand of water vapor? This time, I will definitely make fun of him and make this human cultivator lose a lot of face. Yang Lijun was in the middle of the wave of fire. She suddenly waved her hands and the huge wave of fire turned into a fire peacock that stretched out its neck and let out a long cry. It was the first to peck at the hand of water vapor condensed by Lu Ping. Unexpectedly, not only did the fire peacock fail to dry the hand of water vapor, but it also fell into a state of collapse. At this time, Yang Lijun finally realized that she had encountered a master. The Jinyuan in her body surged and the wave of fire continuously poured into the fire peacock from behind her. However, all of this was useless. Lu Ping's hand of water vapor directly grabbed the neck of the fire peacock and twisted it. The whole fire peacock suddenly disappeared. The hand of water vapor did not stop. It ignored the wave of fire in the sky and went straight into the hand of Yang Lijun. In the midst of Yang Lijun's cry of alarm, the hand of water vapor suddenly collapsed and turned into a rain that fell down, while Yang Lijun herself was also drenched. Chapter 1101. The battle between the fire peacock Yang Lijun and Lu Ping was decided in a split second. This was beyond the expectations of everyone except for Yang Rujuan and Xiang Shiping. Yang Lijun's body was covered in water vapor, drying her clothes in a short while, but her hair was still a bit messy. When she looked at Lu Ping again, her eyes were filled with fear, and she muttered, "What the hell, pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger, third sister is really too, can't even see through his cultivation." She complained in a low voice, but she did not think that other than her third sister there was no one else who could see the level of Lu Ping. Yang Huijun looked at Lu Ping with a solemn expression and said, "I didn't know Brother Lu had such strength. It was us sisters who were blind and offended you with our words. Please forgive us, Brother Lu." Before Lu Ping could answer, she turned to Yang Rujuan and said, "Third sister, Brother Xiang Shiping must have been invited here by Brother Lu. I think the person who helped him at the side was you." Yang Rujuan was speechless, and her face was flushed. Yang Huijun was wrong. Not only did she not defeat Xiang Shiping, she could not even be considered as his help. It was Lu Ping who defeated Xiang Shiping by himself. That was why he agreed to go with them to the land of 5 elements. But at this time, she could not say anything. She could only look at Lu Ping and Xiang Shiping, who was submerged in the sea. Lu Ping did not care, but Xiang Shiping's low laughter came from the bottom of the sea. But in the end, he did not expose her. After the 2 tyrant tortoises met, Xiang Jingyu swam to the south first. Xiang Shiping followed behind. Perhaps it was because Lu Ping deliberately concealed his strength, or because of other reasons, the 5 Yang clan sisters gathered on Xiang Jingyu's back, leaving only Lu Ping standing on Xiang Shiping's back. At this time, because there were only a few people on the back of the 2 tyrant tortoises, they had shrunk their bodies. Xiang Jingyu's shell was still round and tall, while Xiang Shiping's shell was still slightly long and oval. Both of them had shrunk to about 10 feet in size. The 2 tyrant tortoises drifted in the South China Sea one after the other. In Lu Ping's perception, the 2 of them first drifted south for a day and a night, then turned southwest for another day and 2 nights, then turned west for another day and 2 nights, and finally headed east for another night. This made Lu Ping feel a little dizzy. After a few days, they still could not find the 5 elements tortoise vault. The 2 tyrant tortoises seemed to be still wandering in circles on the sea. If it was not for the 5 Yang clan sisters staying on the back of Xiang Jingyu, Lu Ping would have thought that the 2 tyrant tortoises were deliberately circling in circles, refusing to lead them to the 5 elements tortoise vault. In the end, Lu Ping could not help but ask Xiang Shiping, "Brother Xiang, why are you walking in circles these days?" Xiang Shiping laughed and said, "Brother Lu, you are so patient. I thought you would ask me the first time you changed your direction, but I didn't expect you to wait for so many days before asking." Lu Ping did not know whether this was a compliment or a compliment, and he did not know whether to laugh or cry. Then, he heard Xiang Shiping continue, "The 5 elements tortoise vault is a wonderful, semi-closed world between the world of cultivation and the void. Its position on the South China Sea is always changing. Except for some cultivators with extremely good luck who may encounter it by chance, only our tyrant tortoise clan, who inherited the bloodline of Taoist Gui, can find the location of the 5 elements tortoise vault by relying on faint senses. The directions of these senses are often changing, so we can only follow the direction of our senses. But Brother Lu, don't worry, we will eventually find the 5 elements tortoise vault." Lu Ping smiled and said, "It seems I am ignorant and ill-informed." With nothing to do, Lu Ping and Xiang Shiping chatted about the cultivation world of the South China Sea. Although the tyrant tortoise clan was lazy and liked to sleep, their lifespans were extremely long. Moreover, Although the members of the Tyrant Tortoise clan did not meet each other often, they clearly communicated with each other using secret methods. Therefore, their knowledge of the South China Sea was extremely extensive, and they often talked about some major events that happened in the cultivation world of the South China Sea as if they had personally experienced them. Lu Ping suddenly thought of something and asked, "Brother Xiang, when we met before, you once said that you can help my subordinate Xian Tortoise assimilate a trace of the Ba Tortoise clan's bloodline to improve its cultivation aptitude. I wonder if that's possible?" Xiang Shiping chuckled and said, "There is indeed such a thing, but I had previously asked Brother Lu to block that water peacock." Unexpectedly, Brother Lu changed sides at the last moment. "If Brother Lu wants to help your subordinate absorb the bloodline of the Tyrant Tortoise clan, it will not be so easy." Lu Ping saw that he was still brooding over this matter and also smiled. "Brother Xiang, if there is anything you need, as long as I can do it, I will definitely do my best." Xiang Shiping was immediately overjoyed and said, "I heard that Brother Lu is a Grand Master alchemist. I wonder if you can refine some pills for me, some pills to refresh my mind?" Lu Ping was a little confused and asked, "Brother Xiang, what do you want these things for?" Embarrassed, Xiang Shiping chuckled and said, "Since I am going to the land of the 5 elements with you, it is necessary for me to cultivate for a while. However, I believe Brother Lu has heard of the habits of my Tyrant Tortoise clan. It is already very lucky to be able to last 3 days in the land of the 5 elements without falling asleep." Seeing that Lu Ping seemed to have understood something, Xiang Shiping continued, "Since we are going to the land of the 5 elements, no matter what, we should cultivate well so that we can comfort the spirits of the Laozu clan who left behind such a treasured place for us. Although my Tyrant Tortoise clan can still cultivate even if we fall asleep, it is still too slow and too wasteful." Lu Ping thought for a while and said, "I have some treasures here that can calm the mind and nourish the mind. How about the soul-calming incense?" As soon as Xiang Shiping heard the soul-calming incense, his whole body suddenly trembled, as if he was extremely excited. Lu Ping did not understand and asked curiously, "Brother Xiang, you are—" A few huge bubbles appeared at the bottom of the water and a snoring sound came from the bottom of the sea. It seemed that at this moment, Xiang Shiping was trying his best to restrain something. After a while, Xiang Shiping said in a slightly calm voice with a bitter smile, "Brother Lu has made me suffer so much. My Tyrant Tortoise clan is naturally fond of sleeping, but any treasures that can calm the mind and nourish the mind have a great attraction to us. For other cultivators, these are rare treasures in the process of cultivation, but for my Tyrant Tortoise clan, they are the best knockout drug." This reason caused Lu Ping to feel somewhat unprepared. He was stunned for a moment before he said, "Then what kind of medicinal pill does Brother Xiang need to be able to, not sleep?" Xiang Shiping said with a bitter smile, "In order to not fall asleep, the medicinal pill needed must be some medicinal pill that goes in the opposite direction. Of course, in addition to not harming our bodies, it is best to have a sufficient amount of medicinal pill, otherwise with the physique of my Tyrant Tortoise clan, I am afraid it will not be of any use at all." Lu Ping thought for a while, then began to rummage through his storage magic tool. After a long time, he finally found a jade bottle, poured out the medicinal pill inside and looked at it, saying, "It has been left for too long, fortunately it has not gone bad. Brother Xiang, what do you think of this medicinal pill?" A strange fragrance emitted from the medicinal pill, even seeping into the sea water. Gurgle! This time, it was not Xiang Shiping who was gasping for breath, it was his huge body that emitted a deafening growl. "Is this hungry?" However, this growl only lasted for a moment before it was suppressed by Xiang Shiping. Xiang Shiping's surprised voice came from the sea. "What kind of medicinal pill is this? Just the smell of it makes me feel unusually hungry." Lu Ping chuckled and said, "It's not a rare medicinal pellet. It's a blood condensation realm medicinal pellet called the Hunger Meng pellet. If a monster cultivator below the blood condensation realm is poisoned by the Hunger Meng pellet due to their lack of intelligence, they will eat their own kind out of hunger. The more they eat, the hungrier they become, until they die from overeating. However, this medicinal pellet's grade isn't high, so it's useless for core forging realm cultivators. For Brother Xiang, it'll only make you feel hungry for a moment when you're caught off guard. But if Brother Xiang doesn't resist it, I'm sure this feeling of hunger will be enough to keep you awake. For a moment, there was no sound from the bottom of the sea. After a while, Xiang Shiping's slightly strange voice was heard. Brother Lu, your method is really unique. Lu Ping chuckled. Of course, because Brother Xiang is from the tyrannical turtle clan, I may have to refine this hunger demon pill again. Otherwise, with Brother Xiang's physique, the effect of this hunger demon pill will not last for long. The two reached an agreement. After the 5 elements tortoise vault ended, they would help Lu Dagui assimilate the tyrannical turtle bloodline to improve his aptitude. At this moment, Xiang Shiping's slightly embarrassed voice sounded in Lu Ping's ear again. Hee, Brother Lu, did you say that you have the soul anchoring incense on you? Lu Ping was startled. What is it? Still chuckling, Xiang Shiping said. Naturally, I want to exchange for this item. After this 5 elements tortoise vault ends, I believe it will not be difficult for me to pass my first lightning tribulation. In this way, I will have to spend 80 to 100 years to sleep well. In order to sleep more soundly and not be disturbed by the small fries, I may have to use some tranquilizing and soul-calming treasures to improve the quality of my sleep. Hee. Lu Ping was speechless. The tyrannical turtle clan loved to sleep, and for this reason they did not hesitate to sacrifice their cultivation time. In order to enter a deep sleep, they actually used the cultivation world's treasures to improve the state of mind, enhance comprehension, and avoid qi deviation to promote sleep. Lu Ping's moment of hesitation made Xiang Shiping think that he was unwilling, so he smiled and said, Brother Lu, do you remember that I once said that I have a more precious heaven and earth water? If Brother Lu agrees to exchange with me, I will give this Gu Zi heaven and earth water to Brother Lu to use. How about it? Lu Ping was surprised and asked, Oh, what kind of Gu Zi heaven and earth water? Xiang Shiping smiled confidently and said, It is the Jade Clarity Eye liquid. What? Lu Ping was overjoyed. It is the Jade Clarity Eye liquid. Chapter 1102. Ape Taoist, one of the 7th patriarch of the Heaven and Earth sect, used 2 special techniques to dominate the world of cultivation. The first was to control the spirit veins in the world. Ape Taoist loved wine, so his natal magic weapon was a wine cauldron, known as the Heaven and Earth Wine Cauldron. Ape Taoist used this cauldron to regulate the spirit veins in the world during the process of opening the sky. It was a heaven-opening artifact that was as famous as the 7-gem Thunder Gourd. Unfortunately, this treasure was not an offensive treasure, so its power was not comparable to the 7-gem Thunder Gourd. After that, many people in the world of cultivation tried to imitate the 9 cauldrons of the Heaven and Earth sect, but they were unable to achieve the original power of this heaven-opening artifact. In fact, the Linglong wine cauldron in Lu Ping's hands was actually one of the imitations of the 9 cauldrons of the Heaven and Earth sect. In Lu Ping's hands, it could also regulate and condense spirit veins and absorb the qi of the Heaven and Earth sect, but the difference between it and the 9 cauldrons of the Heaven and Earth sect was like heaven and earth. The second was Ape Taoist's pair of magical eyes. Ape Taoist called it the true pupils of the 3 pure ones. Later, the method of cultivation was widely spread in the world of cultivation. However, it was only passed down the initial method of cultivating the true pupils of the 3 pure ones, which was the initial stage of this special technique. Today, Lu Ping was practicing the true pupils of the 3 pure ones. It was not that Ape Taoist did not teach him the rest of the cultivation method of this special technique, but because Ape Taoist regulated the spirit veins in the world, he was very familiar with the cultivation resources in this world. He once said that in this world, it was already very rare to master the first stage of the true pupils of the 3 pure ones, and it was basically wishful thinking to master the second stage. In fact, this was indeed the case. In fact, if one wanted to reach great success in the cultivation process of the so-called Try pure true pupils. One of the 3 rare waters in the world must be used as the last of the 9 kinds of rare waters. Only in this way could the first stage of the Try pure true pupils be completely refined successfully. These 3 types of spirit fluids were the Changqing True Eye Fluid, the Jade Clear Eye Fluid, and the Tai Ching Spirit Eye Fluid. They could be considered the most precious of all water-based natural treasures in the world of practitioners. Many Dharma adepts might not even have the chance to encounter one of these items in their lifetime. Even Lu Ping, who could be considered a person with great luck, had already collected 8 kinds of strange water in order to condense the 3 pure true pupils. However, he was not confident that he could obtain any of these 3 kinds of treasures and successfully condense the 3 pure true pupils. Therefore, when Lu Ping heard that Xiang Shiping had one of the 3 rare treasures, the jade sobering eye lotion, he immediately asked in disbelief, "How is it possible that you have the jade sobering eye lotion here?" The seawater in front of Lu Ping suddenly churned, and a huge turtle head rose from the water. This was the first time that Lu Ping had seen the head of Ba Gui with his own eyes. Although Ba Gui had been floating on the sea previously, the head of the turtle had always been in its shell. Even with Lu Ping's divine will, he had not been able to detect it. The turtle head opened its mouth and spat out a spirit sealing box, which fell directly in front of Lu Ping. When Lu Ping saw that this box was mixed with spirit sealing wood, he was 80% or 90% convinced. After opening the box and taking a look, Lu Ping calmed down a little and looked up at Xiang Shiping. "Brother Xiang, let's not lie in front of a real person. This jade sobering eye lotion is very rare. If you only want to use it to exchange for something like the soul calming incense, to be honest, I really don't dare to take advantage of you." Xiang Shiping smiled and said, "Brother Lu's eyes are sharp. I naturally have my own plans. The 3 frightening incenses come from the same source in the cultivation world, and the lowest quality is the soul-calming incense. Previously, Brother Lu didn't hesitate to mention the soul-calming incense, so I believe that Brother Lu must have soul incense that is better than the soul-calming incense. Whether it is the soul-nourishing incense or the soul-calming incense, Brother Lu can exchange it from me." Lu Ping still hesitated and said, "Brother Xiang, it is not that I don't trust you. Whether it is the soul-nourishing incense or the soul-calming incense, I have them. However, although they can be considered a luxury in the cultivation world, they cannot be compared to these rare treasures that can only be found by luck. If I really want to exchange the soul-calming incense or the soul-calming incense, how much would I have to pay to be worth this box of wondrous water?" Xiang Shiping suddenly understood Lu Ping's doubts, so he laughed involuntarily and explained, "Brother Lu might not know, but my Ba Gui clan's cultivation method is a little special. I believe Brother Lu knows that the Ba Gui clan likes to sleep, but perhaps Brother Lu does not know the root cause of my Ba Gui clan's drowsiness, right?" Seeing Lu Ping's doubtful expression, Xiang Shiping had an as expected expression and explained, "Actually, my Ba Gui clan can also cultivate by ourselves in our sleep, but the speed is extremely slow. However, my Ba Gui clan's long lifespan can be said to be the best in the cultivation world, and there is a reason for that, and the reason is because of our drowsiness. The deeper the sleep, the longer the time, and during this period of time, the less life force will be lost, so naturally, our lifespan will be extended. Therefore, in the eyes of Brother Lu and the others, the 3 frightening incense is only a supplementary item for cultivation, but in the eyes of my Ba Gui clan, it is a treasure that can help us fall into a deep sleep. That is truly a treasure that is even better than the purple gold longevity pill to extend one's lifespan. In that case, could it be that its value is not comparable to a heaven and earth water that cannot be used?" Lu Ping did not expect the Ba Gui clan's cultivation method to be so unique, and he was startled for a moment before saying, "Even so, if I were to exchange with Brother Xiang now, I would feel that I am taking advantage of the situation. After all, the value of these 2 treasures has long been discussed in the cultivation world. How about this? I have fresh, frightening branches here. although it is extremely difficult for a frightening soul tree to survive, if I provide Brother Xiang with 5 of the thicker, fresh frightening branches, would Brother Xiang be confident that he can raise it? 5 fresh frightening branches? Xiang Shiping was startled and thought to himself. Even if the survival rate of a frightening soul tree is extremely low, at least 1 out of 5 fresh branches can survive. As long as I can grow one, doesn't that mean that I will be able to sleep under the frightening soul tree in the future? At the thought of this, Xiang Shiping felt a burst of excitement in his heart for no reason. The frightening soul tree was simply a longevity tree for the Bagui clan, but it was extremely delicate and needed regular care from cultivators. Given the lazy nature of the Bagui clan, who slept for years, decades, or even centuries, it was obviously not suitable for them to take care of the frightening soul tree. Xiang Shiping thought about it, and finally gritted his teeth and said, "Okay, I'll exchange." Lu Ping was slightly happy and put away the spirit prohibition box in front of him. Then, he sent his divine sense into the golden house and broke off 5 thick branches from different frightening soul trees, and handed them to Xiang Shiping. The 5 branches floated in the air, and a space door suddenly opened, and the rootless branches disappeared. At this moment, although Lu Ping could confirm that this space door was not connected to a space treasure, it should still be connected to a special space. After putting away the 5 branches, Xiang Shiping shouted at Yang Rijuan, who was in front of him. "Sister Shui from the Peacock clan, where have you hidden my descendants? I need them here." As soon as Xiang Shiping finished speaking, he saw a blue light flash in the sky, and dozens of big and small sea turtles fell from the sky like huge round plates. However, before they could fall into the sea, they were pulled into the special space that Xiang Shiping carried with him by a space door that appeared in midair. Just from this method alone, it could be seen that Xiang Shiping's familiarity with space magic was definitely above that of ordinary early Dharma adepts. Even if it was not as good as Lu Ping's telekinesis, it was only a step away. Xiang Shiping smiled and said, "With these juniors taking turns to take care of me, I think I can sleep in peace." For the next few days, the group continued to drift aimlessly on the South Sea. Meanwhile, Lu Ping opened up a cave on Xiang Shiping's back and began to practice the last of the Sanqin True Eyes, the jade of heaven and earth refreshing eye fluid. More than 10 days passed, and the green light in Lu Ping's eyes became more and more intense, and it became more and more difficult for him to control it. On a normal day, when he was talking to others, the green light that shot out from his eyes seemed to burn people. On this day, after nearly a month of drifting on the sea, the fire peacock, Yang Lijun, could no longer bear the loneliness and was clamoring to find a deserted island to rest on. Everyone was a little tired from traveling for days, and so they all agreed. Even the 2 tyrant turtles had transformed into their human forms. Xiang Shiping was a strong man who was more than 9 feet tall, and he carried a huge oval shield on his back. He looked fierce and fierce. Xiang Jingyu was slightly shorter and fat, but he was also 8 feet tall, and he looked like a round ball. He also carried a huge shield on his back, but it was round. The fire peacock Yang Rijuan hesitated for a moment, then walked up to Lu Ping and said, "I have to thank Brother Lu for what happened a few days ago. Also, Brother Lu, please don't take what Big Sister said to heart. Big Sister is a straightforward person, and she may not have any bad intentions." Lu Ping smiled and said, "It's just some trivial things, you don't have to worry too much about it." Seeing Lu Ping's calm expression, Yang Rijuan also relaxed a lot, and said, "I'm ashamed to say this, although we 5 sisters have some confidence in breaking through to the land of 5 elements this time, Brother Lu's cultivation is far above us. When the time comes, we will need Brother Lu's help." Lu Ping said, "Everyone has the same goal, so naturally, we will help each other. However, in my opinion, the 5 of you must have some trump cards in your hands, and if they are used, I'm afraid I will have to stay far away from them. Both of us only need to join forces, and helping each other is a bit too much." Yang Rijuan's expression changed, but in the end, she still smiled. Both sides had put aside the previous estrangement, and they were talking and laughing. At this moment, Lu Ping's expression changed, and he shouted angrily, and swung his hand backward. Just as Lu Ping pushed his palm backward, a pair of sharp claws suddenly appeared from the space behind Lu Ping, and it grabbed at the back of Lu Ping's heart. When Lu Ping pushed his palm backward, a Dharma idol auspicious cloud surged up from behind Lu Ping, and a pair of claws that were somewhat similar to crocodile legs stretched out, and collided with the pair of sharp claws that appeared in the space. Lu Ping staggered forward, and there was a burst of blood in his chest and abdomen, and the pair of sharp claws that sneak attacked from behind was shattered. Not far away from the empty space, a muffled groan came, and a cultivator with fierce eyes fell out of the void, and he glared fiercely at Lu Ping, who turned around. "Ingli, what are you doing?" Before Lu Ping could ask, Yang Rijuan, who was next to him, had already screamed. Chapter 1103. The sneak attacker's strength was extremely high. Lu Ping's hasty attempt to parry the attack nearly caused him to suffer a loss. When he turned around, he saw a tall and slender cultivator flying out from the void. Yang Rujuan screamed and flew towards the cultivator. However, it seemed as though she was going to persuade him. Although the friar had launched a sneak attack, it was clear that he was not having it easy. Lu Ping had even summoned his Dharma power to assist him from afar. Like tumbling waves and surging undercurrents, 9 dark forces shot out in succession, each stronger than the last. The friar had spent most of his energy after launching the sneak attack on the cultivator, so he had no time to care about Lu Ping. Instead, he stared viciously at Lu Ping. "Ingli, Brother Lu is just an ordinary friend I met along the way." Yang Rijuan seemed to know what had happened the moment she saw the cultivator. She also knew how to resolve this matter. Lu Ping was stunned. Was she treating him as a rival in love? However, this man's jealousy was too great. The attack earlier was clearly meant to take someone's life. Fortunately, it was Lu Ping. If it was an ordinary Dharma power adept, even if they were lucky enough to survive, they would be seriously injured. Moreover, the attack was aimed at the back of the heart. Even if they were seriously injured, it would damage their cultivation in the future. Lu Ping was secretly furious. At that moment, what happened here had alarmed the other 4 peacock princesses and the 2 tyrannical tortoise men. Everyone rushed over. Lu Ping looked at Yang Rijuan, who was explaining something to the friar in a low voice. Then, he looked at the 4 women who were rushing over. He did not know where they stood. It took him a lot of effort to suppress the violent emotions in his heart. He wanted to see what they had to say. After Yang Rijuan's persuasion, the man named Ingli calmed down a lot. However, he still looked at Lu Ping with a hint of danger in his eyes. It seemed to be a warning. Yang Rijuan also turned around and smiled apologetically at Lu Ping. "Brother Lu, I'm really sorry. Ingli is my fiancé. Just now, he had some misunderstanding about our relationship. Please don't blame him." Lu Ping did not pay any attention to Yang Rijuan's apology. He just looked coldly at Ingli, who was standing behind Yang Rijuan. The cyan light in his eyes made Ingli have no choice but to avert his gaze. At this time, Xiang Shiping, who was slowly walking over from the side, laughed and said, "This is really funny. Just now, this guy wanted to kill Brother Lu, but you, a woman, want to let it go with just an apology. It seems that your peacock princesses are too proud of what they did in the Endless Mountains. Do you think that everyone in the cultivation world will give you face?" Xiang Shiping's words made Yang Rijuan blush. The other 4 women's faces were also very ugly. Some glared fiercely at Ingli, while others looked at Xiang Shiping with a face full of rebuke. Yang Rijuan looked at Lu Ping with a pleading expression, but Lu Ping ignored her. Instead, he suddenly asked Ingli, "Lone Eagle, since when can the proud Jiao Doran's direct descendant marry a princess of the peacock royalty? Aren't you afraid of being declared a rebel by Lone Eagle?" Ingli's expression changed. Other than the golden peacock Yang Huijun, the other 4 peacock princesses' expressions also changed. Lu Ping saw this and sneered in his heart. "You're courting death!" The man's voice was gloomy. He leaped forward in an attempt to not let Lu Ping go, but he was stopped by Yang Rujuan. She had seen Lu Ping's strength, and knew that although her fiancé's strength was considered outstanding among the cultivators of the same level, he might not necessarily win against Lu Ping. Moreover, they were not far from the land of 5 elements, so naturally, she didn't want to complicate matters at this time. However, Lu Ping had suffered a life and death danger for no reason. How could he let it go so easily? He stretched out his left index finger and said to Ing Li, "If you can take this move, I will let bygones be bygones." "Do you dare?" As soon as Lu Ping's voice came out, not only did the man feel humiliated, but the 5 peacock princesses also looked at Lu Ping with unfriendly eyes. Xiang Jingyu chuckled, as if it was none of his business. Xiang Shiping hesitated for a moment, and finally said, "Brother Lu, this person's strength is not weak. Should we be more cautious?" "Good, good, good." Ing Li suddenly opened his mouth and said with a smile, "This Lu Daoyu has great courage. Then I, Ing Li, will accompany you for one move." Lu Ping smiled at Xiang Shiping, and when he looked at Ing Li again, his aura suddenly soared. With Lu Ping as the center, the auspicious clouds behind him suddenly began to rise, as if a divine creature from ancient times was about to appear from the auspicious clouds. Except for Ing Li, the rest of the people retreated again and again, giving way to the desolate reef. And Ing Li was the first to bear the brunt. Under the pressure of Lu Ping's aura, he actually had an impulse to collapse without a fight. "I can't waste any more time," Ing Li secretly said. "This person's aura is very strange. If I drag this on, of course I won't collapse without a fight, but my strength will be greatly reduced." Ing Li suddenly jumped up and waved his hands. Countless feather swords shot out from his hands towards Lu Ping. Seeing that Lu Ping was about to be submerged by the feather swords, Ing Li saw Lu Ping's face revealing a mocking smile. Ing Li's expression changed, and the feather swords in his hands shot out even faster. However, at this moment, the sky full of feather swords suddenly lit up with a ray of aqua blue light. The blue light suddenly brightened, and in an instant, it cut through the sky full of feather swords, causing them to be completely submerged under the blue light. Ing Li was shocked. It must be known that although his feather sword shot out a sky full of sword light, in reality, it was a genuine first calamity spiritual treasure. If a normal early Dharma adept fought with him, they would usually be caught off guard by his all-encompassing attack. Even the direct descendants of those famous sects often did not dare to let their guard down. In fact, Ing Li had once used this technique to severely injure a green sea snake of the same level of practice as him, and then kill it. However, he did not expect that this remarkable power of his would be so easily countered by the person in front of him, and that the person in front of him was even attacking him. The feather swords in Ing Li's hands did not dare to shoot out again. Instead, they quickly gathered in front of him, forming a pure white feather wall, and collided with the blue light that shot out explosively. Boom! The sky full of feather swords exploded in front of Ing Li. Although the blue light had exploded, a huge force still pushed Ing Li several feet back, but he still felt short of breath. However, he had managed to block the blue light in the end. The shock on Ing Li's face disappeared quickly, and a confident and mocking expression appeared on his face. He was about to raise his head and look in the direction where Lu Ping was. However, at this moment, Ing Li heard Yang Rujuan's cry of alarm. "Ing Li, watch out!" Ing Li was slightly stunned, and thought to himself, "Why, is that person so shameless? Is he really going to attack again in front of so many people?" Although this was what he thought, his hands were subconsciously on guard. From the moment he was repelled by the blue light to the moment Yang Rujuan opened her mouth to warn him, only a moment had passed. However, before the feather swords in the air could completely dissipate, another blue light had already followed closely behind. Ing Li and Lu Ping were facing each other head-on, so they did not clearly see Lu Ping's method. However, the 5 young clan sisters, who were at the side, saw clearly that there was not only one blue light slashed out from Lu Ping's hand, but two, one in front and one behind. Originally, the two rays of blue light had arrived in an instant. However, the moment the first ray of blue light cut through the feather wall, the second ray of blue light strangely slowed down in the air. The moment the first ray of blue light disappeared, the second ray of blue light suddenly burst forth and cut forward even faster than the first ray of blue light. What? Ingli saw the blue light piercing towards his chest at lightning speed. In this moment of life and death, a Dharma with the body of an eagle and the tail of a snake rose from behind Ingli. The Dharma flapped its wings, and countless feather swords once again shot out from its wings, sticking to the blue light. Every feather sword that stuck to the blue light would reduce a portion of its power. However, the blue light was extremely fast, and before its power had dissipated, it had already closed in on Ingli's chest. An armor formed by feathers appeared in front of Ingli, protecting his body. At the same time, the Dharma's curved sharp beak suddenly pecked downwards. Clang! There was the sound of metal colliding, and the long beak of the Dharma with the body of an eagle and the tail of a snake was cut in half. After the blue light dissipated, a flying sword revealed itself. Even though its power had greatly decreased, it still persevered and hit the feather armor in front of Ingli's chest. Pfft! A mouthful of blood sprayed from Ingli's mouth. This attack had caused the space in his heart to shake, and the Dharma to be damaged. He had already suffered serious internal injuries. However, compared to this, Lu Ping's attack had dealt a more serious blow to his confidence. The flying sword flew back into Lu Ping's hands, and only then did Ingli see that Lu Ping had used a pair of flying swords to attack. At that moment, the pair of flying swords were circling around Lu Ping's body. On each of Lu Ping's shoulders, there was a small fish swimming in the air. They were the weapon spirits of the pair of flying swords. This pair of flying swords was Lu Ping's favorite weapon, the thin water long sword. After 3 years of nurturing, Lu Ping had finally summoned the thunder trial of a spirit treasure on the eve of his journey to the South Sea. It had become a spirit treasure, but it had given birth to a pair of weapon spirits that looked like swimming fish. You're courting death! Ingli was also one of the best of the Lone Eagle. His path in the cultivation world had been smooth sailing, and he was also a well-known figure. He had never suffered such a huge blow before. At that moment, he was so angry that he ignored his own injuries and wanted to fight Lu Ping to the death. Lu Ping looked at the person in front of him mockingly. At that moment, Lu Ping had long wanted to kill this person. If it were not for the 5 peacocks, he would have already killed him. Indeed, before Ingli could rush forward, a figure had already appeared in front of him. The golden peacock Yang Huijin's cold eyes caused Ingli to involuntarily shiver and wake up with a start. Chapter 1104. The Lone Eagle was also a top-tier race in the cultivation world, a direct descendant of Jiao Daoren. However, unlike the direct descendants of the Green Sea Snake, the primordial giant crocodile, and the Heavenly Horse clan, the Lone Eagle advocated freedom and pursued the carefree personality of Jiao Daoren. In the cultivation world, he was often called a prodigal son. This was because the Lone Eagle had always been a lone wolf in the cultivation world ever since he reached adulthood. There was no right or wrong in doing things. Everything depended on his own preferences. However, the Lone Eagle also had its greatest enemies, the Green Sea Snake and the top-level demonic beasts with the bloodline of the rock. Among the 7th patriarch of Sky Splitter, Ping Daoren and Jiao Daoren were not on good terms. But after the 2 Laozu had children, although there was a gap between their descendants, it was not to the point of being a mortal enemy. The Lone Eagle was the only exception. The Lone Eagle had always regarded the top-level descendants of the rock bloodline as enemies, while the Green Sea Snakes lived in the East Sea. As the first descendant of the Jiao Daoren, they had never taken the responsibility of killing the demons with the rock bloodline as the Lone Eagle did. This was a betrayal to the Jiao Daoren, which was unworthy of the title of the first descendant of the Jiao Daoren. Therefore, the lone eagle had always regarded the green sea snakes as a traitor, and had always looked down upon them. This could also be seen from the Dharma avatars of Ingli and Chu Haitian. Ingli's Dharma avatar had an eagle's body and a snake's tail. The snake's tail was obviously formed after he killed the bloodline of the green sea snakes when he was in the blood condensation realm. Chu Haitian's Dharma avatar also had a snake's body and eagle's wings. It was obvious that he also had the bloodline of the lone eagle. All in all, the lone eagle could be regarded as an extremely extreme race in the cultivation world. Although the lone eagle wanted to walk alone in the cultivation world, its identity as a top-level race made the cultivators of the lone eagle often regarded as experts among the cultivators of the same level. Therefore, few people dared to provoke them and often stayed away from them. The peacock race was the number one royal race in the Endless Mountains. It was also known as the number one inheritance of the Ping bloodline. Its power far surpassed the Kuan race of the Eastern Sea and the golden-winged Ping race of the Western Wilderness. It was a great race that was as famous as the green sea snakes. And this time, the water peacock Yang Rijuan, who was the princess of the peacock royalty, was actually together with a cultivator of the lone eagle. It seemed that the other four women already knew about this. The first thing that came to Lu Ping's mind was that there must be a conspiracy behind this. The lone eagle was a race that was responsible for eradicating the blood of the Ping bloodline in the world. It could be said that every cultivator of the lone eagle race had a lot of blood and flesh of the Ping bloodline in their hands. Yang Rijuan and a cultivator of the lone eagle were fiancé. Without the consent and protection of the top cultivators of the peacock royalty race, it was likely that Yang Rijuan would be captured by the peacock royalty as a sacrifice to the cultivators of the peacock race who had fallen in the hands of the lone eagle in history. After this incident, everyone became even more estranged. On the second day, when they were on the road, Lu Ping discovered that Ingli had also found a sky hegemonic divine turtle to lead the way. However, since he was able to catch up in such a short period of time, it was likely that he had some other means of communication with the 5 peacock women. This was because when Lu Ping saw the ba turtle that Ingli had found, whose cultivation was obviously only at the late core forging stage, he knew that it would be impossible for a ba turtle of this level to catch up with Xiang Jingyu and Xiang Shiping. When Xiang Jingyu and Xiang Shiping saw the ba turtle that Ingli had summoned, they immediately asked Ingli to release the 2 people. This was because the ba turtle's cultivation was too low. The 2 of them believed that if they went, they would only be sending themselves to their deaths. Although the sky hegemonic divine turtle would usually cultivate alone and sleep after reaching adulthood, it would still take care of its own kind. In this regard, in the cultivation world, there was no demon race as ruthless as the lone eagle. Ingli was originally an extreme person, so naturally, he was unwilling. However, the 2 of them would rather confront each other. In the end, it was Lu Ping who saw through the trick and softly said to the peacock woman, "If it weren't for the 2 of you, we wouldn't have been able to reach the land of 5 elements." Xiang Jingyu immediately understood the meaning of the song and immediately said, "That's right, if I don't let this child go, I won't go to the land of 5 elements." Then he looked at the golden peacock and added, "Even if you beat me to death, I won't go." Seeing this, Yang Rijuan had no choice but to step forward to persuade him. Ingli had no choice but to let the little ba turtle go, and then he and the 5 peacock women got on Xiang Jingyu's back. Of course, Ingli did not forget to glare fiercely at Lu Ping. Lu Ping looked at the lone eagle in amusement, and the fierce eyes of Ingli naturally did not care about Lu Ping. Naturally, Lu Ping knew that the lone eagle would not let this go. The lone eagle had such a ruthless personality, but when the lone eagle sneaked an attack on Lu Ping did not intend to let this person continue to live. Now, both sides had their own scruples. Once they entered the land of 5 elements, it would be time for each side to settle their grievances. The golden peacock Yang Huojun kept looking at Lu Ping as if warning him, but it also seemed as if it wanted to say something. Lu Ping looked at it calmly. In the end, Yang Huajun did not say anything, but turned around and got on Xiang Jingyu's back. The group continued their journey. Lu Ping seemed to be isolated by everyone. Fortunately, Lu Ping had a good relationship with the two Ba turtles. Previously, Xiang Shiping had already told Xiang Jingyu about the hunger squid pill. Xiang Jingyu was naturally very interested and wanted to ask for some from Lu Ping. He also promised Lu Ping to exchange for it with treasures. However, although the starving swamp pellet was a mystical medicinal pellet, it was only a low-grade blood condensation realm medicinal pellet. It was nothing to Lu Ping, so he said that he would give it to Brother Shiping as a gift. There was no need to exchange it for anything. In one night, Lu Ping refined the high-grade and mid-grade pill furnaces he had on him. On average, he refined 2 batches of pills from each furnace. With Lu Ping's current alchemy skills, the success rate of pills of this grade was naturally 100%. With 4 to 5 pill furnaces, he produced 10 batches of hunger squid pills. It was enough for the 2 burly men to use for a period of time. Although Xiang Jinyu was a little unhappy with Ingli for bringing a core forging realm, little turtle to search for the land of 5 elements, he got along well with the dancing peacock maiden. They talked and laughed when they were together. Seeing this, Xiang Shiping laughed and said, "Brother Lu, it seems that old Xiang is also being isolated by them." Lu Ping smiled and did not take it seriously. Instead, he asked, "Brother Xiang, I am a little curious. Because Peng Daoren and Jiao Daoren are not on good terms, the Lone Eagle wanted to kill all the demons with the Peng bloodline. As the Green Sea Snake did not agree with the Lone Eagle's idea, he called it a traitor and also became his mortal enemy. However, when Jiao Daoren mistakenly consumed Taoist Guy's poisonous pill, some people even said that Taoist Guy deliberately murdered him. Why didn't the Lone Eagle and the Sky Hegemonic Divine Turtle Clan make things difficult for them?" Xiang Shiping smiled and said, "I thought Brother Lu wanted to ask how the Peacock royalty came to be with the Lone Eagle. I didn't expect you to ask about this." Lu Ping's eyes lit up and he said, "Why? Does Brother Xiang know the reason why the 2 clans came together?" Xiang Shiping shook his head and said, "How would I know? This matter is obviously unusual. It seems that the higher-ups of the Peacock royalty must know about it. I just don't know if the Lone Eagle brat is also risking becoming a traitor of the Lone Eagle clan for his own independence. If that is the case, it will be easy to explain." Anyway, the Lone Eagle has such a perverse character, others will at most be surprised. If not, then it can only be the relationship between the Peacock royalty and the Lone Eagle clan. If that is the case, then the world of cultivation will change. Lu Ping nodded in agreement, but then he asked, "Then what about the problem Brother Xiang mentioned earlier? Why did the Lone Eagle not target the Sky Hegemonic Divine Turtle Clan for revenge?" Xiang Shiping smiled and said, "Brother Lu, you don't know about this. Do you know how the Land of 5 Elements came about?" Lu Ping asked curiously. "Didn't Brother Xiang say before that in order to improve his cultivation, Taoist Gui exchanged a treasure from Ping Daoren for cultivation? Later, because of the influence of that treasure, the Land of 5 Elements was formed in Taoist Gui's Taoist field?" Xiang Shiping smiled and said, "Of course. But has Brother Lu ever heard that when Jiao Daoren mistakenly took a poisonous pill and became infected with the origin qi, a cultivator under Jiao Daoren asked Taoist Gui for a solution? Taoist Gui once said that only the Samling 5 Elements leaf might be able to restore Jiao Daoren's origin qi." Lu Ping's heart thumped a few times in disappointment. Lu Ping tried hard to conceal his expression and said with a hint of surprise, "I have heard of this. Could it be?" Xiang Shiping smiled and said, "Yes, Taoist Gui was the person who had the deepest friendship with Jiao Daoren. Otherwise, Jiao Daoren would not have dragged Taoist Gui with him to open up the overseas cultivation world. After Jiao Daoren mistakenly took a poisonous pill from Taoist Gui naturally felt bad. He borrowed the treasure from Ping Daoren in the name of cultivation. In addition to cultivation, Taoist Gui also wanted to cultivate the Samling 5 Elements leaf to save Jiao Daoren. Lu Ping had never heard of such a secret. Hearing this, he couldn't help asking, "Has Taoist Gui already cultivated the Samling Five Elements leaf?" Xiang Shiping shook his head and said, "I don't know about this. There are many legends passed down among the seventh patriarch, but there are even more unknown secrets among the seventh patriarch. What's more, some of these legends are true, while some are false. There are also different opinions about the Samling Five Elements leaf. Some say that it has been cultivated successfully, while some say that it has never existed in this world at all. It's just Taoist Gui's ulterior motives." Lu Ping asked with a smile, "Brother Xiang, you don't seem to have much reverence for Taoist Gui as your ancestor. How can you recount so many legends that are unfavorable to Taoist Gui so calmly?" Xiang Shiping smiled and said, "It has been at least 30,000 years since the seventh patriarch opened the world. We are not lone eagle who can pass on our hatred through our bloodline." After a few days, they seemed to be getting closer and closer to the land of five elements. They had encountered several large tyrant tortoises on the surface of the ocean, converging towards them several times. Most of the tyrant tortoises had cultivators standing guard on their backs, either one or many. Only a few tyrant tortoises came alone. Amongst the tyrant tortoise race, they were as rare as phoenix feathers and qilin horns. Chapter 1105. As more and more Ba Gui and other cultivators appeared, Ing Li hid his identity. However, his method of hiding was not very good. As long as the cultivators looked carefully, they would still be able to find out who he was. However, in this place where many cultivators gathered, very few people would risk being misunderstood by using their divine will to find out who they were. Obviously, Ing Li did not hide his identity, but he did not want to cause trouble. Naturally, Lu Ping would not deliberately expose Ing Li's identity to attract others' attention. As more and more Ba Gui gathered and moved in the same direction, Lu Ping gradually separated from the five peacock women and moved alone with Xiang Shiping. From the people Lu Ping had seen, he could see that most of the cultivators going to the land of five elements this time were early Dharma adepts, but there were also many mid-Dharma adepts. Lu Ping even sensed that there were a few hidden auras of great cultivators, but Lu Ping could not find their specific location. However, there was not a single core forging adept among them. Lu Ping had asked Xiang Shiping the reason, and only then did he know that the effect of condensing the inner yuan in the land of five elements was more targeted at Dharma adepts, and most of them were at the early Dharma adepts. For core forging adepts, it was not obvious at all. Moreover, breaking through the encirclement of the land of five elements by Mara was a dangerous task, and core forging adepts were a bit of a burden. Sometimes, cultivators could be seen riding core forging stage Ba tortoises. However, whenever such a cultivator appeared, the nearby Ba tortoises would collectively stop and the cultivator would tactfully let the Ba tortoise go. Some people would even explain that they were using core forging stage Ba tortoises to find the location of the five-element tortoise vault. Without the guidance of the adepts, these cultivators would either fly in the air with the group of adepts, or find a tortoise to borrow a seat from the guard. Some people even fought over this. After all, the defense of the adepts could be said to be the best in the world. In addition to their huge size, each adepts and the Dharma adepts were equivalent to a giant fortress, and they were the best choice for breaking through the formation. The cultivators who wanted to enter the land of five elements had to choose the adepts as their temporary partner. Firstly, they wanted to find the land of five elements, and secondly, they wanted to use the unparalleled defense of the adepts to break through the formation. There was only Lu Ping on Xiang Shiping's back, which naturally attracted many people to hitch a ride. There were also some cultivators with bad intentions who wanted to drive Lu Ping away and occupy Xiang Shiping's adepts. However, after a mid-Dharma adept made a move but was repelled by Lu Ping's thunderous moves, many of the covetous cultivators had no choice but to give up on the idea. After that, some of them tried to join forces to chase Lu Ping away, but unexpectedly, Xiang Shiping told them to leave. Although the crowd was reluctant, they didn't want to offend Xiang Shiping. If Xiang Shiping, the tyrannical tortoise, was unwilling to leave, then what was the point of driving Lu Ping away? They couldn't possibly force Xiang Shiping. The few people who wanted to join forces to drive away Lu Ping saw that there were already more than 20 adepts in the Dharma adepts. This idea only flashed in their minds for a moment before it was completely extinguished. At this time, another cultivator with a long sword on his back was carried by a core forging adepts to catch up with the group. When he saw the magnificent group of adepts in front of the friar, he was instantly delighted. The long sword on his back was unsheathed, and he suddenly stepped on the long sword and flew into the air. He said to the core forging adepts who were carrying him, "Brother Tortoise, thank you for your hard work. This time, we have caught up with the other groups, you can leave now." The core forging adepts nodded at the cultivator and roared at the group of adepts in front of him. Many of the adepts who were moving forward also turned around and roared back, as if they were greeting each other. After that, the core forging adepts turned around and left. This cultivator was about 30 years old, and he accompanied the group of adepts in midair on a long sword. At the same time, his eyes were looking at something in the group. After a moment, his eyes lit up. He saw that there was actually only one person on one of the adepts. The cultivator's feet flashed, and he was already in front of Xiang Shiping. He cupped his hands towards Lu Ping and said, "Fellow Taoist, can you let me go?" When this cultivator appeared, many people recognized his identity. Some cultivators even wanted to invite him to their bagui. However, this cultivator didn't come forward, so no one dared to do so. They couldn't just flatter him. Previously, Lu Ping didn't allow anyone to come forward, so many people were unhappy. Seeing this person come forward, many people gloated in their hearts. They were secretly looking forward to a battle between these two. If they offended this person, Lu Ping would probably not have a good ending in the future. Lu Ping glanced at the person indifferently, especially paying attention to the long sword under his feet. He knew that this person was an extremely brilliant sword cultivator, but he was still about to open his mouth to refuse. Unexpectedly, when the person saw Lu Ping, he suddenly exclaimed and asked, "Are you brother Lu Tianping of the North Sea?" Lu Ping was startled. He didn't know how this person knew him, but he still replied, "I am Lu Tianping, may I know who you are?" The friar laughed and said, "It really is Brother Lu. I am Su Jin of Purple Sun Palace. I wonder if Brother Lu has heard of me from 6th Junior Brother?" Lu Ping suddenly understood and smiled. "So it is Brother Su of Zhongcheng's sword. Why, is Brother Su also going to the land of 5 elements?" Su Jin smiled helplessly. "This is all because of the trouble you guys caused in the East Sea 3 years ago. Qin Shijun of Crystal Palace was the first to pass the first Thunder trial and advance to the mid-Dharma stage. The disciples of the other holy lands also advanced to the mid-Dharma stage, but it put a lot of pressure on us. It wasn't easy for us to pass the first Thunder trial, but it caused our training to become unstable. Who knows, we might have to go to the land of 5 elements this time." Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. None of the direct disciples of the Holy Lands were easy to deal with. Qin Shijun of Crystal Palace was the first to start the 3rd-generation disciples advancing to the mid-Dharma stage. In just 3 years, more than one of the direct disciples from the Holy Lands had advanced to the mid-Dharma stage. This Su Jin was only the 3rd direct disciple of Purple Sun Palace, but he had already passed the first Thunder trial. Lu Ping asked Xiang Shiping, "Brother Xiang, Brother Su is one of the 6 swords of Purple Sun Palace. I would like to invite Brother Su to go to the land of 5 elements with me. I wonder if Brother Xiang would agree?" Xiang Shiping said nonchalantly, "Since you are a direct disciple of Purple Sun Palace, your abilities will naturally not be weak. It's up to you." Lu Ping immediately smiled at Su Jin and said, "Brother Su, if you have not found a suitable sky-dominating divine turtle, would you be willing to join forces with me to go to the land of 5 elements?" Su Jin smiled and said, "Of course, I dare not." The surrounding cultivators who were waiting to watch a good show were all disappointed. They watched as Su Jin landed on the back of the sky-dominating divine turtle that Lu Ping was on and laughed with Lu Ping. From time to time, he would even talk to Xiang Shiping about something. Many of the cultivators were secretly resentful that Lu Tianping was just doing it for fun. When he saw that the person who came was a direct disciple of Purple Sun Palace, he immediately went up to him. However, some people immediately reacted. Lu Tianping? The one who was born in the North Sea cultivation world and whose level of attainment was almost unrivaled among the third generation of cultivators in the overseas cultivation world? It seemed that this person was quite famous among the third generation of cultivators in the cultivation world. After hearing about Lu Ping's reputation, many people looked at Lu Ping with much less disdain. With Lu Ping's ability, he could be on equal footing with a direct disciple of Purple Sun Palace like Su Jin. Brother Su, how is Brother Xie doing? Su Jin naturally knew that Lu Ping would definitely ask about Xie Tianyang, so he smiled and said, "Sixth junior brother is very impressive now. The reason why I was able to pass the first thunder trial in such a hurry has a lot to do with him. Among the six of us, sixth junior brother is the youngest, but his level of attainment has skyrocketed. He is already at the peak of the early Dharma stage, and is only one step away from the mid-Dharma stage. He will soon surpass me, the third senior brother, and I have no choice but to pass the thunder trial first. I can't let sixth junior brother surpass me so easily, can I?" Lu Ping said sincerely. Brother Xie is a genius, so it makes sense that his current level of attainment is so high. Su Jin agreed and said, "That's right. This kid usually runs around the cultivation world and doesn't spend much time on training, but his level of attainment is not slow at all. A few days ago, he even teamed up with the Empyrean walkers of the spirit beast taming sect to severely injure the 7th and 8th floor masters of the 9 Xian Tower. You can say that his level of attainment and reputation have not been neglected at all." Naturally, Lu Ping had heard of the 9 masters of the 9 Xian Tower. They were also the cream of the crop among the third generation of cultivators in the cultivation world and were one of the 9 direct disciples of the 9 Xian Tower. The spirit beast taming sect naturally had more than one Empyrean walker, but the one who was on good terms with Xie Tianyang was naturally Sang Yu. It seemed that the two of them had made great progress in their cultivation, as they were able to easily defeat the direct disciple of the 9 Xian Tower. Lu Ping could not help but ask curiously, how did the two of them get into a fight with the direct disciples of the 9 Xian Tower? Su Jin shook his head and said, "I'm not too sure about that. It seems that the sworn sister of the spirit beast taming sect's Empyrean walker was bullied, and since sixth junior brother is on good terms with the heavenly walker, the two of them teamed up to avenge her." Just as Su Jin finished speaking, he felt a flash of murderous intent from Lu Ping. Su Jin slapped his forehead and said, "Oh, I forgot. Brother Lu, when the three of you were still core-forging cultivators, you even dared to fight the 4th elder of the Tenma people. That's a friendship of life and death." Then he said seriously, "But Brother Lu, the 2 masters of the 9 Xian Tower are not to be underestimated. If 6th junior brother and the heavenly walker fought, then so be it. I don't think the 9 Xian Tower will say anything about it. But if Brother Lu makes a move as well, regardless of the outcome, I'm afraid the Junling sect that Brother Lu is in will be in trouble." Lu Ping nodded, indicating that he understood. However, it was not because of their friendship, but because of Sang Yu's sworn sister, Qing Hu. Qing Hu is currently working for him, so if the 2 masters of the 9 Xian Tower were to make things difficult for her, it would naturally be the same as making things difficult for Lu Ping. Moreover, Qing Hu might have been put in a difficult position for some reason, and this matter might have something to do with what Lu Ping had instructed them to do. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.